Chapter 763. The pale green smoke was blown into a mess and spread to a larger area, so much so that 2 liners and a fishing boat were shrouded in it. Despite Wang Rui's timely warning, some of the martial artists who didn't completely hold their breaths still inhaled some of the pale green poisonous smoke. Puff, puff, puff. Blades flashed and swords flashed as flesh and blood splattered everywhere. In just a minute or two, more than 20 of Wang Rui's powerful subordinates were either killed or severely injured by the savage mammoth. Even the burly man, who was very powerful, was seriously injured and lost his fighting strength. Viviani gritted her teeth. Her sapphire eyes were full of hatred as they locked on the 2 black-robed men in front of her. After a short period of recovery, she had recovered 20 to 30% of her strength. But she was still on the verge of collapsing under the frenzied attacks of the 2 black-robed men and was in a perilous situation. Holy light, stain with blood. Viviani suddenly retreated. The moment her back touched the cabin, a resolute look appeared in her eyes. She cut her finger with a sharp dagger and a hazy milky white radiance spread out from her body. Strands of blood-colored light spread out like a tide on the milky white radiance. The blood-colored holy light seemed to weave into a big net as she waved her arm with all her might. The net instantly enveloped the 2 black-robed men who were trying to retreat. In the next moment, a flame rose on the blood-colored holy light as a monstrous heat wave burned the 2 black-robed men in just a few breaths. In the air, Ji Chimei's pupils shrunk and a strange light flashed in her eyes. She slowly said, "Lord, that little girl called Viviani is using the holy light blood art of the White Wings clan. This holy light blood art is extremely vicious. It's vicious to the enemy and also to the user. It's a forbidden art that burns the user's essence and blood essence. Most importantly, using this holy light blood art will burn the user's vitality." Tan Xiu frowned and said, "You mean you can determine Viviani's identity? She's the White Wings clan from the immortal world who came to Earth? It's just that she changed her form. According to the saying on Earth, it's called reincarnation while retaining her consciousness and core bloodline?" "It should be correct." Ji Chimei nodded. "If the White Wing clan of the immortal world wanted to descend in this way, they must be very powerful. At the very least, they must be at the Golden Immortal Realm. As far as I know, the White Wings clan doesn't even have a perfected Golden Immortal, but they do have a small number of Golden Immortals. It seems that Viviani's predecessor should be an immortal who reached the Golden Immortal stage," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Speaking of which, her aptitude was not bad. Now that she had the bloodline of a human, if she was nurtured well, it should not be a problem for her to return to the Golden Immortal Realm. However, if I'm not wrong, if she's able to ascend to the immortal world once more, she'll be able to unlock the memories of her previous life. Perhaps, according to her previous cultivation experience, it's not impossible for her to reach the perfected Golden Immortal Realm. Ji Chimei asked with a strange expression, "Does Venerable Lord want to take her as his subordinate?" Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I do have this thought." Ji Chimei said, "Such being the case, Venerable Lord, you must be mentally prepared. When we return to the immortal world, we must protect the White Wings clan." "Is it a problem for me to protect the White Wings clan?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Given your ability, Venerable Lord, it's naturally a piece of cake for you to protect the White Wings clan. Now, do you want this subordinate to save them?" Tan Xiu shot a deep look at the battle below. He shook his head and said, "When someone is drowning, saving them in the most desperate moment is the only way to make the other party feel the greatest gratitude. Take that Wang Rui brat below for example. He helped Viviani when she was fleeing, but he can only get a bit of gratitude from her at most. It's not enough to make her see a glimmer of hope in her despair." "What Venerable Lord said makes sense," sighed Ji Chimei sincerely. On the ocean liner, after Viviani used the holy light blood art, the energy inside her body that had just been restored was completely consumed. Furthermore, she had burned her blood essence and consumed her vitality, causing her to completely lose her combat effectiveness. "She's dead." Viviani's slender body swayed a few times. She would have fallen to the floor if it wasn't for her holding the cabin wall. She regretted boarding Wang Rui's liner. Had she not boarded it and continued to drift on the vast sea, perhaps she wouldn't have been found by savage mammoth people. Even if she was in a difficult situation, she could still live longer. The most important thing was that she wouldn't have implicated Wang Rui and his men. Die. A deep and aged voice blasted in everyone's ears on the liner. A huge aura instantly arrived as a long sword streaked across the sky and swept the necks of two black-robed men. Blood splashed like a fountain as the two black-robed men were directly killed. The long sword swept and a shadow flickered. A series of afterimages were seen as the black-robed men who boarded the liner were beheaded one after another. Wang Rui, who was resisting the enemy's attacks, suddenly felt light. He watched several of his opponents being directly killed, but he didn't feel happy at all. He was perfectly aware that even if he could kill all the savage mammoth people today, it would still be a heavy loss for him. The subordinates he brought this time were all top-notch experts under normal circumstances. Several of them were even about to reach the martial Dao Grandmaster realm. Interesting. An erratic voice came from the mouth of the old man on the bow of the fishing boat. A hazy figure suddenly appeared in front of the old man who killed the black-robed experts. As the sharp scales pierced his clothes, the scales on his back protruded more than 10 centimeters long, and two black horns drilled out of his head. His surging aura pressed down on the old man in front of him. Where did this monster come from? The eyes of the old man from Qingqing Mountain flickered. He waved his long sword and layers of sword shadows instantly shrouded the old man. The silver-haired old man laughed maniacally. He raised his arms and allowed the long sword to slash at his scaly arms. At that moment, the silver-haired old man's laughter suddenly came to an abrupt end. The scales on his arms were torn and two bone-deep wounds spurted out blood. Scram! The silver-haired old man had a ferocious look in his eyes. The moment his arm was injured, he slammed into the old man from Qingqing Mountain. The huge impact caused the old man from Qingqing Mountain to be unable to dodge in time, and his body was forcefully sent flying. As he spurted out a mouthful of blood, the old man's complexion drastically changed. After stabilizing his body, he kept waving his long sword to force the silver-haired old man back and then flashed to appear in front of Wang Rui. Bastard! How did you provoke these monsters? Wang Rui had just witnessed the battle between the two old men. His heart trembled a few times when he saw the elder of his clan getting injured. It must be noted that the strength of this elder had broken through the martial Dao Grandmaster realm and reached a higher level. They're mutants injected with wild beast genes. They have the ability of wild beasts. The old man from Qingqing Mountain fiercely exhaled and put his hand on Wang Rui's body. The moment he dashed to the cabin door, he forcefully threw him inside and then stood proudly at the cabin door. Hey old geezer, let's talk. The silver-haired old man's eyes flickered with viciousness as he grinned and said, You want to negotiate with me? What qualifications do you have to negotiate with me? You're very strong. The old man from Qingqing Mountain snorted coldly. Even my current cultivation is slightly weaker than you. But you should also be well aware that you won't be able to survive today if I go all out and try to perish together with you. I don't know about the enmity between us, but I think we should stop immediately. If there's any misunderstanding between us, we can talk about it. The silver-haired old man fell into silence. He also realized the terrifying strength of the other party. Most importantly, the mutated body wouldn't last for too long. It could only last for 10 minutes at most. If he couldn't kill the enemy in 10 minutes, he could only wait to be slaughtered. I want her dead. The silver-haired old man suddenly turned his head and pointed at Viviani. The old man from Qingqing Mountain looked at Viviani and immediately frowned. He then turned his head and shouted, Tell me, who is this foreign woman to you? She's my friend. Inside the cabin, Wang Rui's heart sank. He had never expected that even this elder of his clan would not be able to exterminate all of the savage mammoth members. In fact, unless it was absolutely necessary, this elder of the clan would not even negotiate with the other party. He realized that he might not be able to protect Viviani. The old man from Qingqing Mountain snorted coldly. He then glanced at Viviani and said, You can kill her since she's not one of us. However, I have a condition, and that is that you cannot kill her on our liner. No problem. The silver-haired old man nodded. Saying. He gestured to the two black-robed men behind him. The two black-robed men immediately sprinted in front of Viviani. Their sharp nails pierced into Viviani's shoulder and quickly dragged her to the fishing boat. The silver-haired old man nodded to the old man from Qingqing Mountain and smilingly said, "You're very strong, mister. I hope we still have a chance to fight in the future. To us, China is a restricted area. I hope that you can visit Europe in the future." "I'll definitely visit Europe if I have the chance," sneered the old man from Qingqing Mountain. The silver-haired old man let out a strange laugh and immediately dashed to the fishing boat like a cannonball. He didn't even glance at the captured Viviani and shouted in a deep voice, "Go back!" At this moment, Viviani's heart was like dead ashes. She was abandoned, but she didn't have the slightest resentment. She realized that neither Wang Rui nor the old man from Qingqing Mountain could protect her. Perhaps this is the best ending, but it's a pity that I can't see him again. I can't tell him that I've killed a few enemies. Chapter 764. Viviani's heart was filled with despair because she had no energy left in her body. The holy light blood art was a forbidden technique that could harm her. Not to mention other aspects, just the fact that she couldn't use her power for the next 3 days was enough. In such a situation where she didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken, let alone these experts from Savage Mammoth, even an ordinary person could easily kill her. After being abandoned on the deck of the cargo ship, Viviani saw Wang Rui, whose face was livid and full of hatred. He stood next to the Qingqing Mountain old man at the moment and didn't speak for a long time. A sad but beautiful smile bloomed on Viviani's face. Her lips trembled as she mouthed, "Thank you, bastard." Wang Rui clenched his fists. This was the second time he felt powerless. The first time was when he was defeated by Tan Xiu's men in Saipan. A cold and indifferent expression could be seen on the Qingqing Mountain old man's face. He glanced at Wang Rui and lightly said, "I've seen your impulsiveness and immaturity since I came out with you this time. I'll definitely report this to your grandpa after we go back. As for how he punishes you, it's not up to me." Wang Rui suddenly turned his head with anger flashing in his eyes as he questioned in a deep voice, "You obviously could have saved her. Why did you give up? I told you she's my friend." "There's no such thing as an absolute friend in this world." The Qingqing Mountain old man sneered. "I can only choose self-preservation when it comes to protecting my friends. I can indeed kill that old geezer if I use my trump card, but I'll lose my reliance after using it. Hence, I have no obligation to help your friend who has nothing to do with me. It's enough as long as you don't die." Was it enough? Wang Rui's face was burning. He recalled the words he said before and how he stopped Viviani from staying on the liner to rest. To put it bluntly, he was the one who harmed Viviani. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been caught by Savage Mammoth's men and wouldn't have been captured if she had left directly. "I can't accept this," said Wang Rui hatefully. The old man from Qingqing Mountain sneered and said, "If you don't want to accept it, then put away your thoughts of eating, drinking, and having fun in the future. Just stay in seclusion and cultivate in the mountains. Although you are known as the most outstanding genius of our Qingqing Mountain in the past 100 years, if you continue to fool around like this, other young people will definitely surpass you, step on your head, and may even become the successor of our Qingqing Mountain in the future." If it was in the past, Wang Rui would definitely disdain the old man's words and think that he had done a very good job. After all, a martial Dao grandmaster who was less than 30 years old was definitely a first-class master. If he was given another 8 to 10 years, he was confident that he could break through the barrier of martial Dao grandmaster and reach a higher level. But now, his pride had been brutally shattered, and his arrogance had vanished into thin air. In fact, the cruel reality told him that even if he reached a higher level in the future, he still wouldn't be invincible. There were still many experts in this world. What's that? The expression of the old man from Qingqing Mountain suddenly changed, and he looked up at the cargo ship that was gradually disappearing. He could vaguely see that hundreds of meters above the cargo ship, bolts of lightning were faintly discernible, and a layer of light blue watery light was rippling in the air. Wang Rui followed his gaze and was stunned. His eyes were filled with shock. The lightning bolts quickly became clearer, and the pale blue watery light was like falling from the sky, constantly magnifying in his eyes. At this moment, the silver-haired old man on the cargo ship also noticed the abnormality in the sky. His expression turned incomparably solemn, and the scales that had yet to recede erected one by one, ready to fight. Boom! Tens of thousands of lightning bolts gradually formed as thick as an arm. These lightning bolts shuttled back and forth in the watery blue light curtain, sometimes merging and sometimes separating. The thunder in the sky became louder and more deafening. It was like the doomsday in this area, making people panic. Crack! A lightning bolt suddenly broke through the blue light curtain and struck down from a height of 100 to 200 meters, directly killing a black-robed man on the cargo ship. "Watch out!" The silver-haired old man was horrified and cried out involuntarily. Although he shouted, his mind was as clear as a mirror. The lightning was too powerful and too fast. Even he was not sure if he could dodge it, let alone his men. Crack! Crack! Lightning bolts constantly broke free from the watery blue light curtain. These lightning bolts seemed to have eyes, and every time they struck down, they would accurately hit a member of Savage Mammoth. In just a dozen breaths, more than 30 experts of Savage Mammoth had died tragically in the lightning attack. What's going on? The silver-haired old man's heart was filled with fear. Had it not been for his poor swimming skills, he might have jumped into the sea to escape. This lightning bolt was too strange. It didn't strike anywhere else, and it didn't attack anything else, but his men. It was simply a targeted attack. However, no one answered his question. Out of his dozens of subordinates, only a dozen or so were still alive. Most importantly, all of them had retreated to the cabin, leaving only Viviani, who was lying limply on the deck. Lightning still kept striking down. This time, the target was the top of the cargo ship's cabin. The lightning was very powerful, and the thick top was constantly being struck and even directly pierced through. In the end, the power of the fishing boat was destroyed, and a large amount of seawater poured in, causing the entire cargo ship to sink. A kilometer away, standing on the bow of the liner, the Qingqing Mountain old man, Wang Rui, and his few remaining men were all dumbfounded and tongue-tied at the sight of the tragic state of the fishing boat. Is this the wrath of the heavens that the Savage Mammoth's members have done? Wang Rui's lips squirmed as he muttered to himself. The Qingqing Mountain old man slowly came to his senses. He deeply frowned and shook his head. Something's not right. This isn't the wrath of the heavens. It's more like a celestial being is targeting those mutants. Is this even possible? Before Wang Rui could finish his words, it was as though his throat was suddenly blocked by a sponge. He clearly saw two figures falling from the sky and directly landing on the deck of the fishing boat. It's him? Wang Rui's eyes were fixated on a familiar voice, and disbelief filled his eyes. The moment Tan Xiu's feet landed on the deck, he smiled and circled around the silver-haired old man twice. He looked at the silver-haired old man's eyes that were wide open and full of fear. He raised his hand to touch his chin and said, "What an interesting mutant." He used the genes of wild beasts to transform himself, giving himself the abilities of wild beasts for a short time to enhance his own strength. Unfortunately, the human's life chain was destroyed, and his potential was overexerted, ultimately causing him to lose an important foundation for his progress. The silver-haired old man wanted to move, but a terrifying mountain-like force directly imprisoned him. Even if he exerted all his strength, he still couldn't move. He couldn't even lift his little finger. He wanted to speak, but his mouth seemed to be sewn and his throat was blocked. He couldn't even utter a sound. It was like a viper trying to grab his heart, making him feel as though he had fallen into an ice cave. Tan Xiu shook his head. He turned around and walked toward Viviani, who was struggling to get up. He reached out to support her and squatted on the deck to let her lean on him. Then he lightly smiled and said, "I'm really curious. What did you do to deserve such an unscrupulous pursuit?" A trace of vitality finally appeared in Viviani's deathly gray eyes. She felt as though she was dreaming. She could feel Tan Xiu's hand supporting her and looked at the face that had been popping up in her mind countless times recently. She thought that she would never see Tan Xiao again in this life, and she even felt a deep regret deep inside. But now, he unexpectedly appeared in front of her alive. Even the horrifying scene just now seemed to be related to him. Viviani's voice was a bit hoarse. She didn't know what to say for a moment. You didn't expect that I would suddenly appear here, did you? Tan Xiao lightly smiled. Did you see the hope of survival? Viviani indeed saw the hope. In her eyes, Tan Xiao was an unfathomable person. Back when she was in Jingmen Island, he didn't seem to have a very strong power. But now that she saw him again, she could deeply feel the unfathomable feeling from him. Since you can see the hope of survival, then live well in the future. Tan Xiao smilingly said. Living is the most real thing. Viviani took a deep breath to suppress her surging emotions. Then, she seriously asked, how did you appear here? Those lightning bolts just now, were you the one who made them? Do you think I have that kind of ability? Tan Xiao lightly smiled. I don't know. Viviani shook her head. Well, then don't ask since you don't know. Tan Xiao chuckled. I just happened to see you being chased. Considering that we're old acquaintances, I helped you. You haven't answered my question yet. What did you do? Why did they chase you with such great fanfare? Viviani suddenly smiled. The vitality in her eyes grew more intense, and the smile on her face turned brighter. It was as though she had thought of something worth celebrating. She spoke with a cheerful tone. I've killed my enemies, and a few of them as well. They were the ones who set up all kinds of traps behind my back and killed my loved ones one after another. Not bad. Tan Xiao gave a thumbs up and praised. Viviani's fair face blushed and she said with an embarrassed expression, but the last one was from Savage Mammoth. They chased me after they found me. I've been running for more than half a month, yet they still caught up with me here. In the beginning, the people sent by Savage Mammoth to kill me were very weak. I killed a lot of them. I don't remember the exact number, but it should be around 100 or 200 people. But the more time passed, the stronger the people chasing me became. Fortunately, you arrived in time to save me, else I would have been killed by them. Chapter 765. Tan Xiao gradually understood Viviani's bitter experience and secretly admired her ability. Those mutants of Savage Mammoth were indeed very strong. Some of them were even comparable to experts at the early stage of Foundation establishment, such as the silver-haired old man. Viviani was indeed very strong. If she could unleash her full power, even experts at the early stage of Foundation establishment would not be her match. However, there were too many waves of enemies chasing her, and more experts were coming. Even if she went all out to kill them, there were still times when her hands would soften. Even if she desperately tried to escape, she was still not as good as the Savage Mammoth's members. Tang Xiao smiled and gestured to Ji Qi. Ji Qi immediately snorted coldly. More than a dozen experts of Savage Mammoth who were hiding in the cabin seemed to have their necks pinched by an invisible big hand. Their feet kept flailing as they were dragged out of the cabin. The strange scene made Viviani's mouth gape wide open with disbelief written all over her face. Tan Xiao flipped his hand and took out a dagger. He stuffed it into Viviani's hand and smilingly said, "They're your enemies, so you'll be the one to take their lives." Viviani was stunned. She looked down at the dagger in her hand and then at the Savage Mammoth's members, whose faces gradually turned red as though they were hanged. After hesitating for a moment, she gritted her teeth and struggled to stand up. Then she walked toward those people step by step. Puff! The dagger stabbed one of them in the heart and was quickly pulled out. Then she stabbed the others one by one. In just half a minute, more than a dozen Savage Mammoth members were killed by her. As she walked toward the silver-haired old man, she turned to look at Tan Xiao and asked, "Can I also kill him?" Tan Xiao made an inviting gesture and smilingly said, "These mutants can also be called bastards. You can do whatever you want with them." Viviani heavily nodded and gratefully looked at Tan Xiao. Then, she fiercely stabbed the silver-haired old man's heart with the dagger in her hand. As though she wasn't satisfied, she pulled out the dagger and fiercely stabbed the silver-haired old man's throat. Although her strength was extremely weak, it still pierced a few centimeters. Phew! Viviani pulled out the dagger and staggered back a few steps. Had it not been for Tang Xiu's quick reflexes to quickly support her, she would have fallen down again. Tang Xiu smiled and asked, "How do you feel now?" "It's very complicated," said Viviani in all seriousness. "But I'm thirsty for power." The corners of Tang Xiu's mouth curled into a smile. He hadn't expected Viviani to be so tactful. He hadn't even spoken his true intentions, yet she had already brought up the topic. Possessing power is naturally the dream of countless people. However, dreams were just dreams. Those who could obtain opportunities to increase their strength were few and far between. However, if such an opportunity is placed in front of you, but you have to pay a huge price for it, are you willing to accept it? "What's the price?" asked Viviani. Tang Xiu said, "For example, freedom." Viviani was silent for a long time before she firmly nodded and said, "I do." Tang Xiu said with a smile, "Since you are willing, then come with me. You should have seen the horrifying scene just now, right? If you come with me, let alone these mutants chasing you, even if all the enemies of the savage mammoth are chasing you, you can easily annihilate them." "You can give me such an opportunity?" asked Viviani in astonishment. "Of course I can," said Tang Xiu. "Why else would I tell you this? All right, let's go back after greeting that kind-hearted person." Viviani turned to look at the two liners in the distance. She then looked at Wang Rui, who was standing on one of the liners. She then asked with an inquiring expression, "You mean, Mr. Wang?" "You know me. I also know this Mr. Wang you mentioned," Tang Xiu said with a smile. "He saw something he shouldn't have seen today, so I must deal with this matter." After that, Tang Xiu directly hugged Viviani in his arms. He lifted his feet and walked step by step in the void toward the liner a kilometer away. As he stood in front of the liner, he looked at the shocked faces of the old man from Qingqing Mountain, Wang Rui, and his men. Then he indifferently smiled and said, "Wang Rui, how do you feel about watching the show?" Wang Rui's throat was a bit dry and his lips shivered a few times. Then he suddenly asked, Tang Xiu, are you a cultivator?" "You can say that." Tang Xiu nodded. A bitter expression appeared on Wang Rui's handsome face as he slowly said, "I finally understand why you didn't want to fight with me at that time. It seems that I was too arrogant before. You're aware of your own shortcomings. If you can change it, you'll still be a promising talent in the future." Tang Xiu lightly smiled. "Is this your Qingqing Mountain's elder? Not bad. You can even break the shackles of a martial arts grandmaster and reach a higher level." The old man from Qingqing Mountain respectfully cupped his fists and said, "Wang Luzhong greets immortal master." "No need to be so polite." Tang Xiu waved his hand and said, "It's just a coincidence that we met. It's just that you have some talent in cultivation, but you're somewhat lacking in being a person. I hope you can change this bad habit in the future and don't look down on others. I think you should learn from Wang Rui in this aspect." The old man from Qingqing Mountain looked embarrassed. He knew what Tang Xiu was referring to. After all, he was the one who gave up Viviani and eventually let her fall into the hands of the Savage Mammoth organization. However, despite being reprimanded by Tang Xiu, he didn't dare to have the slightest complaint, nor did he refute. His tone was still respectful as he respectfully said, "I'll definitely change it in the future." Tang Xiu let out a faint smile as he looked at Wang Rui again and said, "You helped Viviani today, so she owes you a favor. You can contact me if you need her to repay this favor in the future. As for the others, I don't need your memory anymore." In an instant, Ji Qimei made a hand seal and sent a stream of light into the minds of the Qingqing Mountain old man and the others. Wang Rui's expression drastically changed as everyone fell to the ground. Tang Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him. After waiting for half a minute, he saw the Qingqing Mountain old man open his blank eyes and shake his head as he crawled up from the ground. "What's wrong with me? Poor they." Wang Rui's pupils shrunk as monstrous waves rose inside his heart. He already realized what kind of method this was. It was a terrifying method to erase other people's memories. Who is she? How could this old lady have such a terrifying ability? Tang Xiu hugged Viviani and didn't put her down on the ground. He sniffed the pleasant smell coming from her body. Tan Xiao gently patted her arm and lightly smiled. Wang Rui, I think you should know what to do about today's matter. Viviani is injured and I need to take her away as soon as possible. So we'll take our leave first. See you later. See you later? Wang Rui felt a blur before his eyes as Tan Xiao, Viviani, and the terrifying old lady's figures suddenly disappeared. A deep sense of loss arose in his heart, because from this moment on he was already aware of one fact. He would never be able to surpass Tang Xiao in terms of cultivation in this lifetime, let alone defeat him. The two of them were simply not people from the same world. The Qingqing Mountain old man's body trembled as he glanced around and exclaimed, "What kind of ability is this?" To speed. Wang Rui shot a deep look at the place where Tan Xiao disappeared and slowly said, "I can't tell you who they are. I hope you can forget what you just saw. It's only good for you and our Qingqing Mountain." Jingmen Island, Everlasting Feast Hall. Viviani only felt a blur before her eyes as the thunderous weather on the heavenly mountain disappeared. Although she was still in Tan Xiao's embrace, she was shocked to find that Tan Xiao had stepped on the ground at this moment. The surrounding woods and buildings indicated that they had arrived on dry land. This place is? Viviani suppressed the shock inside her heart and asked with a confused expression. "I'll ask you one last question, Viviani," said Tan Xiao with a smile. "Do you still have any concerns? Or unfinished business?" Viviani thought for a while before she nodded and said, "I do. I just want to destroy the Savage Mammoth organization. Because I've been in contact with the Savage Mammoth's people and found them to be very evil. They're simply devils." "Only this one?" asked Tan Xiao. "It seems like it's the only one," said Viviani. "I have no relatives and I've already left the Holy See. Therefore, I have nothing else to worry about." Tan Xiao nodded and said, "If that's the case, then you'll be a member of the Everlasting Feast Hall in life and a ghost of the Everlasting Feast Hall in death. This is the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ on Jingmen Island, so you'll stay here for the time being. I'll send someone to arrange your food and clothing, as well as take you to familiarize yourself with the environment here." "All right," Viviani replied and then asked, "Then, when can I get the opportunity?" Standing at the side, Ji Qimei indifferently said, "Little girl, it's already your opportunity to be brought here." "That's right. Someone will naturally teach you the real cultivation technique after you familiarize yourself with this place," said Tan Xiao with a smile. While they were talking, Gu Xiaoshue's figure flashed from a distance and appeared in front of Tan Xiao in just a few breaths. She looked at Viviani with a curious expression and then said, "Grand Master, Lulu just called me to find you. She said it's urgent." "Ouyang Lulu?" With a bit of curiosity, Tan Xiao took out his mobile and dialed Ouyang Lulu's number. Just as the ringtone rang, the call was picked up and Ouyang Lulu's urgent voice came out of the phone. "Tan Xiao? Is it Tan Xiao?" "It's me," said Tan Xiao. "What happened?" Ouyang Lulu hurriedly said, "Where are you now? Hurry back to Demonic City. Han Qingwu has an accident." Tan Xiao's complexion changed and asked in a deep voice, "What happened to her?" Chapter 766. Tan Xiao hung up the phone. His expression was as cold as the frost in the 12th month, and his eyes were filled with worry. He had thought countless times that he and Han Qingwu, or to be precise, Xue Qingqing, had nothing to do with each other anymore. If there was any relationship between them, it would be the hatred between enemies. But he didn't realize that whether it was Xue Qingqing in the immortal world or Han Qingwu now, both of them were always affecting him. "Buy me the next flight back to Magic City." Tan Xiao wanted to let Ji Qimei send him back to Magic City, but after thinking for a moment, he felt that it was not appropriate. He dared to let Ji Qimei send him back to the sea area of Jingmen Island because the satellite monitoring would be greatly affected by the bad weather, and the radiation area would not reach here. But once he reached the mainland, once Ji Qimei flew him in the sky, they would definitely be captured by the satellite monitoring. Magic City. In the deepest part of the Paradise Manor, Han Qingwu was sitting cross-legged on the bed in a room with a pale complexion and ominous glint in her eyes. Her disheveled appearance made her look particularly distressed. Her wrists and feet were tightly bound by 4 fine steel chains, fixing her to the 4 corners of the room. Cultivation deviation. This was a problem that cultivators were prone to encounter. Every cultivator would suffer from cultivation deviation. If it was light, they would become mentally deranged, causing serious internal injuries. If it was serious, their blood and energy would flow in reverse, causing their body to explode and die. Outside the room, Ouyang Lulu's beautiful face was filled with deep worry. She didn't like Han Qingwu and even regarded Han Qingwu as her rival in love. But now that Han Qingwu had become like this, she still felt uncomfortable inside. Furthermore, she had already started cultivating, so she was aware that there was a possibility that her cultivation would go berserk in the future. This caused her to be much more cautious when it came to cultivating. How is it? When will Tang Xiu come back? Han Jintong looked at Ouyang Lulu as she hung up the phone and asked with an anxious look on his old face. He said that he will immediately rush back from Jingmen Island, said Ouyang Lulu. If there is no accident, he will be back in Shanghai before 2 p.m. Han Jintong hurriedly asked, "Did Tan Xiu say on the phone whether my granddaughter is in danger or not? Her current state makes my heart ache." Ouyang Lulu shook her head. Han Jintong quickly grabbed his phone and found Tan Xiu's number. He wanted to call him, but he was afraid that Tan Xiu would be disgusted. After hesitating for a moment, his finger didn't press the dial button in the end. At this moment, what Han Jintong and Ouyang Lulu didn't know was that Han Qingwu, who was bound by the iron chain, had fallen into a battle between heaven and man. In her mind, countless visions appeared one after another. The series of images was like a movie, constantly influencing her life experiences of the past 20 years. Immortal world. Immortal, sect, lover, betrayal. Han Qingwu felt as though she was in heaven for a moment and then fell into hell the next moment. The changes in her emotions nearly drove her insane. Her consciousness was completely immersed in those fragments, which were intertwined in a complicated way. Reality and dreamland were in conflict, so much so that she didn't even know that she had been chained up, nor did she know that she was already a lunatic in the eyes of Ouyang Lulu and Han Jintong. Jingmen Island Airport. Although Ouyang Lulu's tone was very urgent on the phone, Tan Xiu was a bit relieved. Because from what Ouyang Lulu told him, it was Han Qingwu who had fallen into cultivation deviation and became mentally deranged. It was as though she had gone crazy, rather than her body exploding and dying directly. However, just in case, he still hurried here. It didn't take long for him to board the flight to Shanghai. Mo, Jin Shi, and the rest of the group were still following him as usual. "Boss, will we fall into cultivation deviation in the future?" As the passenger plane soared in the blue sky and white clouds, Mo, who was sitting next to Tan Xiu in the first-class cabin, asked with a bit of worry in his eyes. Tang Xiu nodded and said, "Every cultivator has the possibility of falling into the crisis of cultivation deviation. As the name suggests, cultivation deviation is manifested in two aspects. First, there is a problem in the cultivation. It may be due to a lack of cultivation techniques or encountering a difficult problem in the cultivation process. Second, it's the lack of mental state. For example, if 100 cultivators fall into cultivation deviation, more than 95% of them will fall into the second category. It's a problem in their mental state, leading to the birth of inner demons." "Is there any way to solve this problem?" asked Mo with a nod. "Of course there is," said Tan Xiu. "The best way is to have an extremely high mental state. Even if inner demons are born, it won't affect the cultivator much. Furthermore, there are some secret treasures that can calm the mind and focus the mind to avoid the birth of inner demons as much as possible." Mo's expression moved and he asked with a bit of expectation, "How can I get such secret treasures, boss? Do you know how to refine them?" "I can naturally refine them, but the materials needed are extremely precious," answered Tan Xiu. "Some cultivators may not necessarily be able to get these materials even after cultivating for thousands of years." Mo looked disappointed. Although he had become a cultivator, he still felt awe and reverence for thousands of years. As the saying goes, those who don't die are thieves. Ordinary people could live up to 100 years old, which was already considered as longevity. Anyone who could live up to 200 years old was an old freak among freaks. But if anyone could live up to 1,000 years, wouldn't that mean that they had become a demon? What exactly is the state of mind? The state of mind can only be understood and not explained in words, said Tan Xiu. It may not be accurate to explain it in layman's terms, but it can also be explained as the tenacity of the mind. The more experiences one has, the stronger the mind is tempered, and the more comprehensions one has, the higher the state of mind will be. You should have heard of the word epiphany. Cultivators need perception, and the more they comprehend, the higher their state of mind will be. Mo nodded with a half-understanding expression. He had yet to encounter such a problem that could only be understood but not explained in words. Perhaps he would understand what the state of mind was when his cultivation reached a higher level in the future. At 12:30 noon, the plane landed at Shanghai Airport. Just as Tan Xiu, Mo, and the others walked out of the airport exit, they saw Ouyang Lulu, who was eagerly waiting outside. "You're back, Tan Xiu. Let's hurry to the Paradise Manor," said Ouyang Lulu immediately as she greeted him. Tan Xiu nodded while walking and asked, "How's Han Qingwu's situation?" "She really went crazy." Ouyang Lulu forced a wry smile and said, "She has been in the Paradise Manor for the past few days, so I arranged her to stay in Han Jintong's Western-style building. But in the middle of the night last night, she suddenly went crazy and even collapsed the whole building. Fortunately, only Han Jintong lived there, else ordinary people would have been smashed to death." Ouyang Lulu suddenly realized that she had gone off topic. She quickly returned to the main topic and said, "Han Qingwu's condition is very bad now. She's like a lunatic. If it weren't for Han Jintong and Shanjena joining hands to subdue Han Qingwu and lock her up with fine steel chains, I'm afraid she would have caused a big mess." Tan Xiu nodded after hearing it. Going crazy was a kind of mental disorder. Even if she was injured, there was a way to solve her injury as long as he could arrive in time. However, mental disorder was very troublesome. If he was still as supreme in the immortal world, he could solve this problem by lifting his finger. But his current strength was very weak. Even if he encountered a golden core stage cultivator, he might not be able to defeat the opposite party, let alone solve the most mysterious mental disorder. 2:00 in the afternoon. Tan Xiu appeared in the room where Han Qingwu was locked up. He watched Han Qingwu struggling desperately with disheveled hair and a crazy appearance. He sighed inwardly. He faintly guessed that it might be related to some of Han Qingwu's memories from her previous life, but he was not sure yet. "Lulu, wait outside. No one is allowed to enter the room without my permission," Tan Xiu ordered and closed the door from the inside. Afterward, Tan Xiu went to the table in the corner and took out cinnabar ink, yellow paper, and a writing brush from his interspatial ring and began to draw some talismans. Spirit-subduing talisman. Mind-cleansing talisman. These two talismans had a good magical effect on alleviating mental disorder. If Han Qingwu's condition was not too bad, she should be able to calm down in a short time. However, when Tan Xiu finished drawing the two talismans and used them on Han Qingwu, it did not have any effect. Han Qingwu, who had gone crazy, even treated him as a target. Although she was very strong, her mental disorder made it so that she could only use less than 1/10 of her strength. "It seems that I can only use that move." Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. That method was very powerful. At least it could solve the problem of Han Qingwu's mental disorder. But using that method would have some effects on his body. Tan Xiu bit his finger and a few drops of blood were forced out by Tan Xiu. Ancient and vicissitude talismans were drawn in the void by Tan Xiu. The golden talismans seemed to contain infinite mysteries and gradually merged with the blood that had fused together. Immediately, the red blood turned golden, and a stream of light was faintly discernible. Blood soul curse, demon suppression. Tan Xiu's body trembled and he slapped the golden blood between Han Qingwu's eyebrows. Suddenly, Han Qingwu's body seemed to have been struck by lightning. After twitching a few times, she slowly fell to the ground. Tan Xiu pinched the fine steel chain that bound her, carried her delicate body to the bed, and then reached out to cover her with the quilt. Only then did he stand quietly by the bed for a long time without saying a word. He could clearly see the painful expression that emerged between Han Qingwu's eyebrows, which showed that Han Qingwu's consciousness was still fluctuating violently. Is it the influence of the memories of her previous life? Will she remember the time when she was in the immortal world? After a long time, Tan Xiao left a deep sigh, turned to the door, opened the door and walked out. Tan Xiao, how is my granddaughter? Han Jintong, who was outside the door, rushed to Tan Xiao in an instant and asked nervously. Chapter 767. Tan Xiao was silent for a moment and slowly said, "There's no danger to her life. But whether the price of cultivation deviation is big or small depends on Han Qingwu herself. If she can wake up in time and adjust her problem, she may be able to recover after some time. But if she can't wake up in time, I'm afraid she won't be able to walk on the path of cultivation again." Han Jintong's heart thumped and a chill crazily grew inside him. He was perfectly aware of what it meant for a cultivator to not be able to walk on the path of cultivation again. That was losing hope and the ability to become stronger. Cultivators, if they were to be mediocre for the rest of their lives and never be able to appreciate the wonderful life of a cultivator, it would be more painful than death. He didn't know if his granddaughter could bear such a result. "Is there no other way?" asked Han Jintong hurriedly. "It's not that there is no way. Some heavenly treasures can solve the sequela of cultivation deviation in an instant," said Tan Xiao lightly. "But I don't have those heavenly treasures, and I'm afraid it's very difficult to find them on Earth. I've done everything I can, so she can only rely on herself for the rest." As a matter of fact, there was a situation that Tan Xiao didn't mention because the probability of it happening was less than 1 in 10 million. That was when a person who had cultivation deviation would have an epiphany after finally waking up. The benefits of that epiphany could completely make up for the price of cultivation deviation, and they could even obtain some benefits. Overcoming the heart's devil, controlling it and destroying it. Being able to do this, one would be able to go further on the path of cultivation in the future and become stronger. "Oh, you stay here and don't let anyone come near. Wait for Han Qingwu to wake up and tell me immediately." Tan Xiao then left with Ouyang Lulu. After arriving at Ouyang Lulu's residence, Tan Xiao sat on the sofa with a headache. Han Qingwu's sudden situation caught him off guard. He originally thought that if Han Qingwu could keep cultivating, she might be able to ascend and become an immortal in the future. Even if she couldn't restore the memories of her past life on Earth, she would definitely be able to do so after breaking through to the immortal realm. At that time, it would be time for him to settle the accounts with her in the immortal world. If she stopped at this stage forever, would he have to wait for her to be reincarnated and step onto the path of cultivation again? Even if she had the chance to struggle free from the sea of bitterness of samsara and be reborn as a human, the chances of her recovering the memories of her previous life were extremely small and pitifully small. Ouyang Lulu realized that Tan Xiao was in a bad mood, so she sat down beside him. In order to adjust Tan Xiao's mood, she immediately changed the topic and said, "Tan Xiao, what did you do before?" He didn't even participate in such an important event like the magnificent Tang Corporation's project bidding? I really don't know what Kang Xia is thinking, to actually give such a big project to a company that hasn't even completed the architectural design. Sinyuan Group? Tan Xiao's expression changed, secretly admiring Chen Zishue's methods. Although he had previously told Tang Xia that if there was no one more suitable than Sinyuan Group, then she would give the bidding opportunity to Sinyuan Group. However, Kang Xia was the one who made the final decision on the project bidding. He knew her better than anyone else. She wouldn't easily agree just because he was optimistic about Chen Zishue. "I've been busy with important things recently, so I don't have much time to pay attention to the company's affairs." Kang Xia's ability is very strong. She must have her reasons for choosing the Sinyuan Group. What's more, before I left, I met with the Sinyuan Group's boss, Chen Zishue, and I also saw the unfinished design. It's very good. I recently learned about Chen Zishue and the Sinyuan Group, and I found that this guy is indeed very powerful, said Ouyang Lulu. But he's a bit too ruthless. Many of his means are taboo in the business world, yet he dares to use them. Survival of the fittest is the law of nature. Tan Xiao shook his head. Some people say that the business world is a battlefield, And it's either you die or I perish in a contest with the enemy. The means are not important, but the result is the most important. In order to be the final winner and continue to survive in the future, what's the point of scheming and scheming? What's the point of being despicable and shameless? As long as one is strong enough and can continue to become stronger, all problems will no longer be a problem. You're just twisting words and forcing logic, said Ouyang Lulu with dissatisfaction. How is this twisting words and forcing logic? Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing. Let me give you an analogy. In the imperial power struggle, which of the final winners who can sit on the throne didn't have their hands stained with blood, stepping on countless corpses to sit on it? A lot of things don't depend on the process, but the result. Let me ask you, how is the current Sinuan group compared to 10 years ago? It's countless times stronger, said Ouyang Lulu. Isn't that it? Tan Xiao nodded. Every successful person will have a lot of enemies. But you see, isn't the Sinuan group getting more and more powerful? And Chen Zishua's wealth is getting more and more, no? Ouyang Lulu was speechless. She felt that what Tan Xiao said was very reasonable, but it was still difficult for her to accept it. She was not a good person in the past. Being able to open a casino in Jingmen Island showed that she had a crazy heart. However, opening a casino was like going all the way to the dark side, a very pure dark business. On the surface, the Sinuan group was a decent business, but the operator used a lot of shady means, which made her feel disgusted. Ouyang Lulu couldn't argue with Tan Xiao, so she didn't feel like talking about this topic anymore. She got up and brewed a pot of tea. After placing it in front of Tan Xiao, she said, "That old man Moe has been bewitched recently. Don't you want to see him? It looks like Shanjena can't stand it anymore." Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment. He immediately recalled Moe's research topic and immediately asked, "What's going on? The research has hit a bottleneck?" "Yeah, it's a very serious bottleneck," said Ouyang Lulu with a playful smile. "I heard Shanjena complain about it. If she didn't expect you to give her some medicinal pills, I'm afraid she would have quit her job long ago." Tan Xiao's somewhat depressed mood was instantly smashed by Ouyang Lulu's last sentence. He couldn't help but laugh. He picked up the teacup and drank a mouthful of fragrant tea. Then he got up and said, "Let's go. Let's go see Professor Mo and Shanjena." 10 minutes later, Tan Xiao saw Moe, who was wearing a white coat and a pair of nearsighted glasses. He was busy next to a lot of scientific instruments. Shanjena, on the other hand, sat listlessly on the sofa close to the door, showing a drowsy look. "Shanjena, draw half a tube of blood again. I think I've determined the direction," Moe suddenly said without looking up. Shanjena's complexion changed. She immediately jumped up from the sofa and angrily shouted, "Moyi, you bastard! I've heard this sentence more than 20 times, but what's the result? Tell me, what's the result? Our bloodkin's blood is so precious that it takes a long time to replenish a drop. You've taken more than 20 tubes of blood from me." Moe frowned and turned his head. Just as his eyes fell on Shanjena, he noticed that Tan Xiao and Ouyang Lulu were standing quietly behind her with a smile. "Tan Xiao, you're here." Moe looked pleasantly surprised as he put down the things in his hands and came over. Upon hearing this, Shanjena turned her head and looked behind. When she saw Tan Xiao, she immediately sprinted to Tan Xiao and cried out with grievance, "Please save me, Mr. Tang. This old bastard is too evil. He has no ability and can't research the medicine, yet he forces me to draw my blood every day. I'm going to turn into a dried corpse if this keeps going on." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and gently patted Shanjena's shoulder. He then took out a porcelain bottle from his interspatial ring and handed it to Shanjena, saying, "This is a medicinal pill I just refined recently. It should be good for you after you take it. Don't rush to take it now. Wait until you rest at night." "All right." Shanjena was ecstatic and couldn't bear to part with the porcelain bottle. Her heart itched and she couldn't wait to pull the cork and pour the medicinal pill inside into her mouth. Tan Xiao looked at Moe and smilingly said, "Did you encounter a problem, Professor Mo?" "Yeah." Moe forced a smile. "The blood cells of the bloodkin are too active. I've never been able to find a compatible substitute. Do you think it's possible to use Chinese medicinal herbs? Tan Xiu thought for a while and asked. Moe stared blankly and shook his head. I don't know. Even if I do, I don't know anything about Chinese medicinal herbs. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment. Then, he suddenly took out his mobile and dialed a cell number. After the ringtone rang 7 or 8 times, the call was connected and an old voice came out of the phone. Is there something, Tan Xiu? I don't know if you're interested in something, senior, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I'm researching a medicine here. Once the research is successful, it will greatly contribute to human lifespan. I'm not interested. Even if I'm interested, I don't have the time, said Gui Jianzhou. I found something interesting and need some time to study it. What interesting thing? Asked Tan Xiu hurriedly. Gui Jianzhou was silent for a while and then slowly said, Do you know that there are other creatures in this world besides humans, beasts, and birds? I know, said Tan Xiu. You really know? Gui Jianzhou was surprised. Yeah, I really know, said Tan Xiu. Since you know, then I'll explain it to you, said Gui Jianzhou. I recently found a severed arm in Mist Source Island. The severed arm looks like a human arm, but it's covered with golden hair. I even analyzed and judged that the hardness of this arm and the coagulated blood are very unusual. I got it. The severed arm you found should be from a beast man, said Tan Xiu. However, I think that you should give up on researching that severed arm and join my research. Because the topic I'm researching here is also related to these creatures. Gui Jianzhou's interest was piqued and he asked, Tell me about it. I'll agree if it can move me. Tan Xiu glanced at Shangena and said with a smile, I have a friend. She's a member of the Bloodkin, also known as a vampire. My researchers here are using her blood to study a drug. A vampire? Gui Jianzhou's exclamation came from the phone. Chapter 768. Tan Xiu was very confident. In his view, a living vampire was definitely more attractive to Gui Jianzhou than a beastman's severed arm. Sure enough. After Gui Jianzhou's breathing turned heavy, he replied almost without hesitation. Tell me the location and I'll rush there immediately. Tan Xiu, if what you said is true, I'll join your research. Shanghai's Paradise Manor. I'll be waiting for you here, said Tan Xiu with a smile. As soon as the call was hung up, a trace of lingering fear appeared on Shangena's beautiful face. She pulled a long face and said, Mr. Tang, why did you invite someone again? He won't be like that old man Mo, drawing my blood every day, will he? That's hard to say, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Upon hearing it, Shangena immediately raised her tone and loudly said, I refuse. I don't want to be the first vampire in history to have my blood drawn to death. Vampires sucked the blood of others. If she were to become the first vampire in history to have her blood drawn to death, it would probably cause a stir in the entire Bloodkin clan. She would even be recorded in the shameful history of the Bloodkin clan and go down in history. Of course, this name wouldn't be pleasant to hear. Don't worry about it. Tan Xiu waved his hand. That's right, it's getting late. How about you go back and rest now? You can also take the medicinal pill I gave you and try its effect. Shangena stared blankly for a moment before she immediately nodded and said, Yeah, that's right. I'll go rest first. After that, her footsteps flashed and she disappeared from the room in an instant. Moe came over and asked with a worried face, Tan Xiu, the medicinal pill you gave Shangena is very effective, isn't it? It'll be very troublesome if she's not satisfied and wants to quit. All of our previous efforts will be in vain. Don't worry. Tan Xiu confidently smiled. I guarantee that she won't quit. Moe nodded with relief. After hesitating for a while, he curiously asked, Can you tell me in advance about the origin of this Chinese medicine practitioner you invited? Can he cooperate with me in the experiment? Divine Doctor, Gui Jianzhou. Tan Xiu slowly uttered a few words. Moe was stunned and his complexion drastically changed in an instant. Shock was revealed in his eyes as he said with a trembling voice, You can actually invite Divine Dr. Gui Jianzhou? Oh my God. I've heard a lot about that miracle-working doctor in the field of traditional Chinese medicine. His name is like thunder to my ears. Tan Xiao said, "Keep calm. A divine doctor is also a human being. I hope his arrival will be of some help to you, and I hope that you can research what I need as soon as possible." "Don't worry." Moe heavily nodded. "As long as the medicinal herbs can replace what I need, I will definitely be able to research what you want in the shortest time possible." "Alright." Tan Xiao nodded. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. In a Western-style building deep in Paradise Manor, on the bed in the spacious bedroom, Han Qingwu's eyelashes fluttered a few times, and her eyes slowly opened. As her eyesight was restored, 2 lines of tears rolled down from the corner of her eyes. The sparkling tears in her eyes couldn't conceal the intertwined feelings of pain and regret. Vaguely, the unforgettable love was also flowing in the deepest part of her heart. Soul-reviving grass. Han Qingwu gently sat up. Through the blurry tears, the name of a medicinal herb emerged in her mind. If it was in the past, she would have firmly believed that it was absolutely necessary to take the soul-reviving grass. But now, she began to hate the soul-reviving grass. If she could, she would never want to take it again. The debt of the past life must be paid in this life. Her heart was in too much pain, and she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hold on until the debt was paid off. Han Qingwu put on her clothes and quietly walked out of the room. Looking at the bright sunshine outside, she faintly sighed inwardly. She slowly walked to the woods outside and quietly sat cross-legged. The injuries inside her body were still there, but it wasn't a big problem for the current her. She had recovered the memories of her past life, and all kinds of mental state perception were no longer comparable to before. As long as she wanted to, her injuries could be healed in just a few days. However, she didn't choose to heal her injuries, because she didn't dare to recognize Tan Xiao. She didn't dare to let Tan Xiao know that she had recovered her memories. Therefore, she was still Han Qingwu, the teacher in charge of Tan Xiao, Han Qingwu. "You're awake?" Not knowing how long had passed, Ouyang Lulu appeared on the forest trail. Seeing Han Qingwu sitting cross-legged on a big blue stone, Ouyang Lulu looked surprised and quickly greeted her. Han Qingwu opened her eyes, as though she got to know Ouyang Lulu again. She carefully observed her for a while and then slowly said, "I'm sorry. I've brought trouble to you." Ouyang Lulu had always been fearless, and no one could give her pressure. But when Han Qingwu sized her up just now, she suddenly felt a chill run down her spine, and she felt uncomfortable all over. She felt that the awakened Han Qingwu was like a different person, especially her eyes, as though she could see through her. What's wrong with you?" Ouyang Lulu resisted the urge to turn around and run away as she braced herself and asked. Han Qingwu stared blankly for a moment before her expression slightly changed. When her left hand brushed the long hair in front of her forehead, her eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything gradually faded away, and the special temperament she exuded also changed. She seemed to have returned to the former Han Qingwu as she shook her head and said, "I'm fine, but I'm injured and feel very uncomfortable." "Lulu, were you the one who saved me after I fell into cultivation deviation?" Ouyang Lulu's heart lightened. She could sense that Han Qingwu's eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything had disappeared. She instantly felt that the feeling just now was an illusion. Looking at Han Qingwu suspiciously, Ouyang Lulu said, "I don't have such a great ability. It was Tan Xiao who came back from Jingmen Island thousands of miles away. I don't know what method he used to save you. That's right, you've been sleeping for 7 or 8 days. Are you hungry now? Do you want me to order someone to cook a meal for you?" Han Qingwu touched her belly and nodded. "Then I'll have to trouble you. I really feel hungry." Ouyang Lulu snappily rolled her eyes at her and said, "It'd be strange if you don't feel hungry. Which normal person can persist without eating and drinking for 7 or 8 days? All right, you're still injured, so go back to your room and rest. I'll order someone to send the meal." "Thank you," Han Qingwu said gratefully. A few minutes later, after receiving Ouyang Lulu's call, Tan Xiao hurried to the woods. When he saw Han Qingwu sitting cross-legged on the big blue stone, his brows deeply furrowed. He strode toward her and scrutinized her face a few times before saying, "You're awake?" "Yeah, thank you. I heard it from Lulu." Han Qingwu chuckled. "No need to thank me. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, I just don't want you to die so early. Can you tell me what kind of situation caused your inner demon to breed and cause you to suffer from cultivation deviation? Also, after you woke up from your coma, did you remember anything else? What do you mean? Han Qingwu asked with a puzzled expression. You didn't remember anything? Tan Xiu frowned. Like those scenes that appeared in your mind? No. Han Qingwu shook her head. I just feel that I'm injured inside, and the injury is quite serious. It's impossible for me to recover in a short time. Tan Xiu, is there something wrong with my cultivation? How come I can't control my true essence when I'm cultivating? Even opening up a meridian outside of the cultivation route? Tan Xiu looked at her deeply and shook his head. I don't know. All right, since you're awake, then there's nothing for me to do. You can do as you please. I still have something to do later. Han Qingwu quietly watched Tan Xiu's back as he left. The deep love in her heart was more intense than the bright sunshine. She originally thought that it would be impossible for her to meet Tan Xiu again in this lifetime. She didn't expect that she would be reborn and that Tan Xiu was still alive. Don't worry. I'll only live for you in the future. Han Qingwu's lips squirmed a few times as she whispered in a voice that only she could hear. Tan Xiu had something to do and was about to leave the Paradise Club a few minutes ago. It was Ouyang Lulu who called him over. He didn't get the answer he wanted. Although he was a bit disappointed, he still put this worry to the back of his mind and prepared to face the next matter. The date to explore the 3-star vestige in the Strait of Malacca was getting closer and closer. The ability users sent by the country had also arrived in Shanghai one after another. After learning about it, Tan Xiu found out that the number of people representing China to participate in the exploration of the 3-star vestige was a total of 5. Aside from the captain leading the team, the other 3 had arrived. Old Street in the neighboring corner. In a relatively remote residential area in Shanghai's Jingning district, there was an old alley with a very high reputation. The reason why the paper slip alley was famous was because of a restaurant and a pot of old wine. As the saying goes, good wine needs no dark alley. The Feng restaurant had existed for decades. Although the owner had changed once, the times had changed and the living standards had improved, it still existed. Moreover, it was still a good restaurant in the eyes of many people. Welcome. At the entrance of the restaurant, an enthusiastic young man greeted him. Tang Xiu nodded in response. After entering the Feng family's restaurant, he instantly released his spiritual sense and instantly found the person he was looking for in the corner of the window, a middle-aged man with a full beard and messy hair, who was not much better looking than a chicken coop, was tasting fine wine and eating meat and vegetable dishes. Zhu Long. Tan Xiu could vaguely feel that the middle-aged man was extraordinary, so he stepped forward and asked. Zhu Long looked up and casually glanced at Tan Xiu. Then he indifferently said, Drink first since you're already here. The others will arrive later. I've become the captain of our squad this time, so I hope you can strictly follow my orders in the future. No problem. Although Tan Xiu didn't know how the higher-ups arranged it, he just wanted some peace and quiet since Zhu Long wanted to lead the team. Moreover, he was ready to separate from the team if the 3-star vestige was not too dangerous. He would search for treasures on his own and carry out an in-depth exploration. Chapter 769. Zhu Long didn't know Tan Xiu's origin, nor did he know why Tan Xiu could get permission from his immediate superior to participate in the highly confidential exploration mission of the 3-star vestige. He quietly observed Tan Xiu while drinking the wine. What made him dissatisfied was that he couldn't see anything special about Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu, may I ask you a question? Tan Xiu said, Feel free to ask me anything. I won't hide anything as long as it's convenient for me to answer. We're going to form a team and I'm the captain, so I must know each member's superpower so that I can control the overall situation when we explore the vestige, said Zhu Long. Do you need to tell me what kind of superpower you have? Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and said, My strength is stronger and my speed is faster. In short, it's very complicated. In fact, there's something I need to clarify with you. I'll listen to your command before entering the 3-star vestige, but I'll leave the team after entering and won't be a burden to you. Nonsense. Zhu Long slapped the table and angrily shouted, "The dangers inside the 3-star vestige are definitely beyond your imagination. Don't try to be a hero since you want to join my team. Either you follow the team or you give up now." Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows and pondered for a moment. Then he took out his mobile and dialed a number. At the same time, he turned on the loudspeaker and spoke after the call was connected. "Senior Duanmu? Tan Xiao, have you seen Zhu Long?" Duanmu Lin's laughing voice came from the phone. "Yeah, I have," said Tan Xiao. "You need to clarify something with him." "What is it?" asked Duanmu Lin. "After entering the 3-star vestige, I need to leave the team and explore the vestige by myself," said Tan Xiao. "But he doesn't agree, so tell him." Zhu Long's eyes were filled with ridicule. He knew his immediate superior's temper better than anyone else. It would be strange if Duanmu Lin agreed to such a ridiculous request. Duanmu Lin might immediately revoke Tan Xiao's qualification to enter the vestige with the team. "Give Zhu Long the phone." Duanmu Lin's voice sounded. Tan Xiao put the phone on the table, pushed it forward and said, "Senior Duanmu wants to talk to you. Tell him." Zhu Long sneered and said, "Boss Duanmu, if you want to disqualify Tan Xiao, then let Xiaobing join. She has been preparing for this ruin exploration mission for a long time." Duanmu Lin's voice rang out. "Who said I wanted to disqualify Tan Xiao? Zhu Long, since he wants to leave the team after entering the ruins, just agree." "What?" Zhu Long's voice suddenly rose several octaves, his eyes bursting with disbelief. He wondered if he was hallucinating. How could his immediate superior give such an answer? Was he crazy? "Didn't you hear it clearly?" asked Duanmu Lin solemnly. "Do you need me to repeat it to you?" Zhu Long gulped down a mouthful of saliva and looked up deeply at Tan Xiao. Only then did he say with a wry smile, "All right. I won't stop you since it's your decision. However, once he leaves the team, it has nothing to do with us if he encounters any danger in the 3-star vestige." "All right," Duanmu Lin replied and directly hung up the call. Zhu Long took a deep breath and pushed the phone back to Tan Xiao, saying in a deep voice, "I don't know why my immediate superior agreed to such an absurd request of yours, but I'll say the ugly words first. If you encounter any danger in the vestige, it has nothing to do with us. Whether you can come out alive or not depends on your own luck." "I'm well aware of that." Tan Xiao put away the phone and replied indifferently. Zhu Long looked at Tan Xiao's indifferent expression and disgust rose inside. In his view, Tan Xiao was arrogant and reckless. He was very annoyed because Tan Xiao occupied a spot. The original 5-man team would be reduced to 4 people after entering the vestige. In case they encountered explorers from other countries in the vestige, they would have less strength to fight. Shit stir. Zhu Long suppressed his emotions and finally gave Tan Xiao such an evaluation. Tan Xiao got up and lightly asked, "What's the specific time to go to the 3-star vestige?" 3 days later. Zhu Long didn't want to look at Tan Xiao again and lowered his head to drink his wine. "Let's meet again 3 days later. You have my contact number, so just send me the rendezvous point before you set off." With that said, Tan Xiao turned and walked outside. He could clearly see Zhu Long's contempt and anger toward him, so he didn't want to stay here and be snubbed. "Bastard." Zhu Long looked at Tan Xiao's back disappearing outside the door and slammed his fist on the table. He couldn't figure out what was wrong with Duanmu Lin. Why did he put this shit-stirring stick into their team? Half an hour later. A young man with dyed red hair and strange attire stepped into the shop while carrying a birdcage. When he looked around and saw Zhu Long drinking by the window with a gloomy face, a smile immediately appeared on his face. After sitting opposite him, he whistled and smilingly said, "Boss Zhu Long, aren't big shots like you usually the last to appear? Why did you come so early?" Zhu Long raised his eyelids and coldly snorted. To see a reckless and arrogant bastard. The red-haired youth's expression shifted and he asked, "As far as I know, there's another person who was stuffed into the 3-star vestige exploration mission besides you, me, Aquababe, and Electrolady. Could it be that the reckless and arrogant bastard you mentioned is the other team member?" "That's him." Zhu Long nodded. The red-haired youth's interest was piqued and he sighed. You've always had a good temper, Boss Zhulong, but that brat actually made you so angry. That piqued my interest. Tell me, what's that brat's origin? What abilities does he have? Who knows which rock that brat jumped out from? Zhulong angrily retorted. Of his ability, it's just that he's a bit stronger and faster. What kind of bullshit superpower is that? The red-haired youth looked disappointed and shook his head. That's really boring. Which one of us isn't very strong and fast? Did old man Duanmu's brain go haywire? Why did he stuff such a guy into the team? Doesn't he know that exploring the 3-star vestige is like stepping on a steel wire rope? A slight carelessness and you'll be smashed to pieces without even leaving a corpse behind? Boss Duanmu said that he agreed to let that brat go with us into the 3-star vestige, but he'll separate himself from our team and move freely. What? The red-haired youth abruptly got up and exclaimed in disbelief. Zhulong shook his head and gulped down the wine in the bowl. The red-haired youth looked at Zhulong's angry expression and murmured, "Is that guy very strong? Or is Boss Duanmu under some pressure? What kind of place is this 3-star vestige? It's a dangerous place full of death traps. Does that guy think it's his back garden?" At Paradise Manor, Shanjena was sitting cross-legged on her bed with her aura constantly rising. She had taken a medicinal pill, and there were still 2 left in the porcelain bottle given to her by Tan Xiu. But just 1 pill was enough to let her clearly feel the strength of her physique strengthening at an extremely fast rate, and the strength she possessed had greatly increased. Most importantly, this improvement speed had yet to end. Puff! The clothes on her back were suddenly torn by a pair of wings that suddenly unfolded. The black wings were shiny and glossy, and the hazy blood energy exuded a lustrous luster. As time went by, the pair of wings enlarged a bit and 2 blood-colored runes slowly emerged on it. Did I break through? Shanjena's eyes instantly opened with a look of ecstasy. She was just a baron before she met Tan Xiu. But at this moment, she did not break through to the Viscount realm, but the Count realm. The Count. Her elder brother was hailed as the most outstanding genius in the family in the past millennium, yet he was only a count now. It was because the family had opened the blood pond inheritance in order to cultivate him. But what about her? 2 medicinal pills made her break through to the Count realm. If her clansmen were to know about this, wouldn't their eyeballs explode all over the place? The mysterious Eastern ancient country and the mysterious Eastern cultivators. If I can get a lot of medicinal pills and bring them back to the family, it won't take long for my family to become the most powerful family among the bloodkin, right? Shanjena flapped her wings with a dreamy look on her beautiful face. Recently, Moe had extracted a lot of her blood. Although it was slightly harmful to her, it was simply negligible compared to the benefits she obtained. I can't leave so easily. I can promise Mr. Tang even if he has more excessive requests. Count, if I get more medicinal pills with better effects, will I be able to break through to the Marquis realm in a short time? A few minutes later, Shanjena appeared in Moe's lab like a gust of wind. She watched Moe and Gui Jiancho studying her blood. She didn't even want to retract her wings and immediately sprinted to Moe's side. She stretched out her arm and heroically said, "Professor Mo, you can continue if the blood I extracted today is not enough. Besides, I've decided that I'll try my best to cooperate with you no matter how much blood you need from me in the future." Huh. Moe was dumbfounded. He looked at Shanjena, whose attitude had changed drastically and was at a loss for words for a while. Gui Jiancho also wore a strange expression. He had seen Shanjena cursing him and Moe when her blood was being extracted. How did it change? Gui Jiancho turned his head and glanced at Moe. A smile immediately appeared on his old face as he said, "Did something good happen to you, Shanjena? Why didn't you scold me and Professor Mo today?" Cough. Shanjena was a bit embarrassed as her thoughts were seen through. But in order to get Tan Xiu's approval and get more medicinal pills, she thickened her face and said, "I suddenly figured it out. It's worth it to sacrifice myself for the sake of science." Chapter 770. When Tan Xiu returned to the Blue Star Villa complex that he had not lived in for a long time, He received a call from Zhu Long informing him to gather on Jingmen Island 3 days later. Tan Xiu didn't care about the indifference in Zhu Long's tone. In his opinion, Zhu Long was just arrogant and had a big temper. Recently, he had very little time to cultivate. Although he would take out a few hours to cultivate every day, his progress was too slow. The tens of thousands of celestial bodies in his dantian were like babies crying piteously for food. Only by seizing the time to cultivate could he feed them and quickly turn them into real celestial bodies. Each of them contained huge energy. However, the only thing he felt gratified about was that there were still a lot of magic stones in his interspatial ring. As long as he absorbed all the magic power contained in those magic stones, the first celestial body should be completely formed and become a real energy celestial body. In addition, although medicinal pills didn't have much effect on him, it was at least better than nothing. As long as he had enough resources, he could refine a lot of medicinal pills. The increase in physical strength should have reached a bottleneck. If I want to improve it again, I should need a higher level of body refining liquid. Blood seizing pill is very suitable, but the materials needed to refine it are very demanding, almost reaching the limit of the top materials on Earth. Medicinal herbs are easy to deal with. I got a huge amount of medicinal herbs from the mountain on Miss Source Island, and I also have 1 or 2 kinds of ores that can replace the raw materials. But the fierce beast bones. The bones of low-level fierce beasts won't have any effect. Unless I have a lot of mid-level fierce beast bones and extract the essence from them, there is no way to refine blood-seizing pill. But there are indeed high-level fierce beasts on Earth, such as the terrifying fierce beast on the island in the Evil Dragon Sea area, or the living fire Qilin in the sky crater in the mountains near Songbei Green Mountain. With my current strength, wanting to kill fierce beasts of this level is simply a pipe dream. Ji Qimei and Gu Yanne could do it, but if they were to go all out, they would definitely trigger the suppression from the heavenly Tao of this world. It was very likely that they would be severely injured or even expelled from this space. Therefore, it's not appropriate to count on them. Tan Xiu sat quietly by the window, looking at the new green scene outside, countless thoughts churning in his mind. Turning all the planets in the Dantian world into energy planets in the true sense was not something that could be done overnight. However, as long as he had enough resources, he could easily improve his physique and cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis to a higher realm. If it's in the immortal world, I can easily buy all the cultivation resources I need even if I throw money at it. With a hint of regret, Tan Xiu took out a demon stone and started cultivating. Recently, he increasingly felt that his strength was not enough because of the things he encountered. Whether it was the Stygian Club's divergent creatures, the Pyramid's ability users, or the Savage Mammoth's genetic mutants, many of them were very powerful. Even though he was very strong now, there were still places where he was inferior to them. If there were too many of such powerful characters besieging him, he might still die in their hands even if he had endless means at his disposal. The most important thing was that he was about to enter the 3-star vestige to explore the good stuff inside. Of course, the more he harvested, the higher the risk factor he would encounter. He didn't dare to underestimate the power of science and technology at present, because the terrifying power of science and technology could still crush him to pieces if it were to target him. Strength was king. He was eager to have more powerful strength. Only by becoming stronger could he get more good stuff. For example, solving the crisis in Mist Source Island. He got a huge amount of jades alone, plus all kinds of resources in the central mountain. It was absolutely a bountiful harvest. Early the next morning, after Tan Xiu finished his cultivation, he washed up and came to the living room on the first floor. He saw the housekeeper, Zhang Xinlan, cleaning the house. The smell of food wafting from the kitchen made Tan Xiu's spirit shake. "Shall we have breakfast now, Mr. Tang?" asked Zhang Xinlan. "Let's eat," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Zhang Xinlan put down the rag in her hand and was about to go to the kitchen. Suddenly, she seemed to recall something and said, "Mr. Tang, a friend of yours came a few days ago and said he had an urgent matter to discuss with you. I couldn't contact you since you weren't here, so he left." "Which friend?" asked Tan Xiu. "He said his name is Long Zhenglin. He's quite tall and shaved his head, said Zhang Xinlan. Tan Xiu raised his brows and nodded. He watched Zhang Xinlan go to the kitchen and took out his mobile phone to dial Long Jinglin's number. "Hello, Big Bro Tang?" Long Jinglin's weak voice came out of the phone. "What's wrong with your mood?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Did you indulge yourself too much last night? You haven't fully recovered yet?" Long Jinglin yawned and snorted. "This brother has been abstinent for a long time, all right? But have you been indulging in debauchery every night and indulging in women and wine every day? I had an urgent matter to discuss with you a few days ago. I wanted to ask you for help, but I couldn't contact you." "What urgent matter?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "Borrowing money, what else could it be?" Long Zhenlin forced a smile. "Originally, I wanted to borrow money from my father and brother. But who would have thought that they would be so poor recently that they can't even take out 12 million yuan? What a pity about that red silk flower. Damn it, I heard that thing is very valuable. If I can buy it and sell it abroad, I can definitely sell it for a sky-high price." Red silk flower? Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. Then, he seemed to realize something and hurriedly asked, "What is this red silk flower you mentioned? Is it a very rare medicinal herb?" "You know about the red silk flower?" Long Zhenglin was surprised. After asking, he recalled Tan Xiu's identity as a Chinese medicine practitioner. He immediately felt relieved and said, "That's right. It's that thing. The price of that thing seems to be sky-high in the foreign market now. Unfortunately, that profiteer doesn't have any overseas connections. It seems that the red silk flower can't see the light of day, so he was willing to sell it for 12 million yuan. I don't have any money, so that bastard from Qingqing Mountain bought it." "Where you now?" Tan Xiu asked in a deep voice. "Let's meet now." Long Jinglin seemed to realize something and asked, "Do you also want the red silk flower?" "Absolutely," Tan Xiu replied without hesitation. "That thing is a treasure I urgently need now. Hurry up and tell me where you are. We'll talk when we meet." "I'm at the Mingyuan Resort in Zhongjing," said Long Jinglin. "That's right. Bring some money with you when you come here. I've been cheated by a bunch of bastards recently, and I almost used it to pawn my pants. Just deduct it directly from the magnificent Tang Corporation's dividend at the end of the year." "Got it." Tan Xiu didn't ask Long Jinglin who had cheated him. What he needed now was to know the whereabouts of the red silk flower. The red silk flower was one of the best main materials to refine the body refining elixir and blood seizing pill. It had an extremely strong compatibility and a very terrifying fission ability. These two effects were absolutely indispensable to the enhancement of a cultivator's physical strength. "I'm in a bit of a hurry, so I won't have breakfast at home." Tan Xiu bade farewell to Zhang Xinlan and hurriedly left the Blue Star Villa complex. This time, he didn't let Jin Shi and the others follow him and only took Mo Ao to Tianjin City. Shanghai was very close to Tianjin City, and it only took 2 hours to get there by car. 9:30 a.m. Tan Xiu and Mo Ao rushed to the Mingyuan Resort in Tianjin City. However, what made Tan Xiu speechless was that the Mingyuan Resort was a high-class resort that never accepted non-members. Therefore, Tan Xiu could only call Long Jinglin and ask him to come out and pick him up. "Haha, I didn't expect that Big Bro Tang would also have a day where you can be beaten. This Mingyuan Resort is run by a buddy of mine. Unless you have a referral, you can only spend a considerable amount of money to apply for a membership card here. Let's go. I've already ordered some people to prepare some food and wine. We're just waiting for you to come and eat together." Long Zhenglin stroked his big bald head with a particularly bright smile. Tan Xiu didn't have the leisure to eat and drink and directly asked, "You said that the red silk flower was finally bought by that person from Qingqing Mountain. Who is that person?" Long Zhenglin rolled his eyes and snappily said, "Haste makes waste, don't you know? Even if I tell you now, you won't get the red silk flower for the time being because that person from Qingqing Mountain has left Tianjin City 2 days ago." Upon hearing this, Tan Xiu had no choice but to suppress the desire in his heart and followed Long Jinglin into the Mingyuan Resort. The environment here was very good. Although it was only early summer, it was still full of beautiful flowers and contending with each other. The layout of the layout was also made use of the Tao of Feng Shui, making this place a good place for self-cultivation and recreation. Big Bro Tang, the owner of this place, is called Rin Chi, a well-known figure in Tianjin City. His family can be ranked in the top 5 in Tianjin City. When I first came to Tianjin City, I had a fight with him. It turned out that we didn't get to know each other and eventually became good friends, said Long Jinglin with a smile. I have no interest in that Ren Qi, said Tan Xiu. Long Jinglin rolled his eyes and went straight to the Mingyuan Resort's coffee shop with Tan Xiu. Although it was only in the morning, the coffee shop had already opened and several guests were drinking coffee and chatting inside. After randomly choosing a seat and sitting down, Long Jinglin then said, I know you're impatient, so I'll tell you about the situation first. The guy who bought the red silk flower is called Wang Tao. I heard that he's a famous playboy in the Qingqing mountain area. I'm not particularly clear about his specific origin, but every time he appears, he's always accompanied by a group of bodyguards. This is enough to prove that he has a great background and should have some relationship with the Wang family of Qingqing Mountain. Qingqing Mountain? The Wang family? Tan Xiu frowned and asked. He knows an acquaintance of Qingqing Mountain, Wang Rui. Never heard of him. Long Zhenglin shook his head. Chapter 771. Tan Xiu regretted that he didn't leave Wang Rui's contact information. Otherwise, he could ask Wang Rui. He believed that there would be results soon. However, even if he didn't have Wang Rui's contact information, it didn't mean that he couldn't do anything. He made several calls in a row and finally got Wang Rui's cell phone number. Sorry, the number you have dialed is currently unavailable. The voice from the phone made Tan Xiu feel even more helpless. After angrily putting away his mobile, he looked at Long Jinglin and said, Are you busy with something in the near future? If not, can you help me go to Mount Qingqing? With a strange expression, Long Jinglin asked, Is that red silk flower really that important to you? Tan Xiu said without hesitation, It's very important. If I can buy it, I'm willing to pay an astronomical price. Long Jinglin took a deep breath and said, Big Bro Tang, who told us to be good brothers? Since you need it, I won't refuse. Give me some money, tomorrow, no, today after lunch, I'll rush to Mount Qingqing. I'll find Wang Tao and buy the red silk flower from him. Tan Xiu took out a bank card and handed it to Long Jinglin, saying, There's some money in here. Take it first. It would be best if he could buy the red silk flower, but if he couldn't, he had to find out if the red silk flower was still around. I need to go to Jingmen Island tomorrow to handle some important matters. I'll come back as soon as I'm done there. Long Jinglin did not ask how much money was in the bank card. Instead, he directly called Ren Qi and asked him to come over. Then, he put away his mobile and said, Big Bro Tang, what have you been busy with recently? I went to your school to ask around. Ever since the new year, you haven't been to Shanghai University for classes much. Tan Xiu spread out his hands and said, With great power comes great responsibility. Who asked me to be so powerful that I have to do all kinds of things? On the other hand, you seem to have been scammed by someone. What happened? Long Zhenglin instantly became discouraged and said, Don't mention it. After I came to Tianjin City last year, I set up an investment company. Originally, I just wanted to have a little fun. Who would have thought that the professional manager I hired would be so capable? In less than half a year, he helped me earn tens of millions. Therefore, I used the dividends I got from the Magnificent Tang Corporation during the new year, a total of several hundred million yuan. And the result? That bastard actually colluded with outsiders to set up a trap for me and took away all my money. If it weren't for Ren Qi, my pocket would be cleaner than my face. Tan Xiu asked, You really can't find him? Long Zhenglin forced a smile and said, The world is so big, and they also got such a large sum of money, so they must have already gone far away. How can we find them in such a vast sea of people? Forget it, it's just a few 100 million yuan. If it's gone, then it's gone. At worst, I'll just tighten my belt for the new year. At the end of the year, when the Magnificent Tang Corporation pays dividends again, I'll become a billionaire again. Tan Xiu laughed and said, You are really ambitious. Long Zhenglin said, Can't one's heart be weak? I can't cry, throw a tantrum, and threaten to hang myself. I can't commit suicide just because I was cheated once, right? They were chatting casually. A lean youth hurriedly came in from the outside. After seeing Long Jinglin, he smilingly said, Long Jinglin, why did you call me in such a hurry? Is something the matter? Long Jinglin pointed to Tan Xiu, who was sitting in front of him, and smilingly said, Let me introduce you. This is my eldest brother, Tan Xiu. Eldest brother Tang, he's Ren Qi. Tan Xiu got up and shook hands with Ren Qi, saying, Nice to meet you. Ren Qi said with a smile, Since you're Long Jinglin's friend, then you're also my friend. Brother Tang looks a bit familiar, may I ask where you work? I'm still a student, a freshman this year, said Tan Xiu. Ren Qi casually nodded. Then he looked at Long Jinglin and asked, You called me in such a hurry, don't tell me you just want to introduce Brother Tang to me? I still have a mess over there that I need to solve as soon as possible. How about you help me get rid of that surnamed Ma brat? Moibo? Long Jinglin was surprised. Ren Qi nodded and said, Apart from that bastard, who else dares to make trouble here? I don't know what kind of medicine he took last night, but he insisted on making things difficult for a waitress here. If I hadn't forcefully stopped him, I'm afraid that waitress would have been killed by him. Long Jinglin shook his head and said, That fella is a lunatic. I can only beat him up at most, there's nothing else I can do. Since you're in your turf, you'll have to worry about it yourself. Anyways, I called you here to give you the money I owe you. Give me your account number, I'll transfer it to you now. You got the money? Ren Qi was surprised. Pointing to Tan Xiu, Long Jinglin grinned and said, You can eat and drink as long as you follow my eldest brother. How can you be short of money? Ren Qi nodded thoughtfully and said, Let's not be so troublesome. If you really have the money, just directly charge it to your membership card and swipe it at any cashier in the resort. Brother Tang, I really have something to deal with, so I can't accompany you. I'll treat you to a drink at noon. Tan Xiu waved and said, Since you have something to do, then go do it. I have something to discuss with Long Jinglin, so I'll return to Shanghai after that. All right. Anyway, you can come to my place to play later. After saying that, Ren Qi left in a hurry. Tan Xiu looked at Long Jinglin and asked, Who's that guy surnamed Ma? Why does he sound like a troublemaker? Long Jinglin forced a smile and said, He's more than a troublemaker. That bastard is definitely a lunatic, and his thinking is completely different from normal people. I had 2 conflicts with him before, and I beat him up both times. But the result? That bastard actually kept looking for experts to fight with me. Motherfucker, I won the first 2 times, but the 3rd time, I was beaten up miserably. Out of desperation, I also asked for external help, and we fought more than a dozen times before it was finally settled under Ren Qi's mediation. The Ma family is the biggest family in Tianjin City. Whether it's in the business world or the political world, they have their clansmen. Moreover, their status is very unusual. Whether it's legal business or some shady business, the Ma family has dabbled in it. As for their connections, even in the imperial capital, the Ma family has a very good relationship with other families. Even compared with your Tang family, the families in the imperial capital are not much weaker than the Tang family. That brat surnamed Ma is the 4th son of the current Ma family's patriarch. He's called Old Ma. Tan Xiu had heard of the Ma family. After all, Tianjin City was very close to Shanghai, and the Ma family's name was even more resounding. Even the Ji family in Changshi City was a bit inferior to the Ma family. At noon, Tan Xiu was about to leave the Mingyuan resort when trouble came to him. And the source of this trouble was none other than Old Ma of the Ma family. Oh, Long Jinglin, I didn't expect that you actually have the face to freeload in Ren Qi's territory. If you don't have money, hurry back to Star City and ask your old man for money. What's the matter with you freeloading here? Ma Xiaorong bit a toothpick between his teeth. He raised his head high and looked at Long Jinglin with a contemptuous expression. He even deliberately stood in front of Long Jinglin and Tan Xiu to show a provocative look. Long Jinglin frowned and said, Old Ma, if you're itching for a beating, feel free to be arrogant with me. I won't bicker with you today since my brother is here. If you don't know what's good for you, I can guarantee that you'll have a miserable end tomorrow. Ma Xiaorong covered his chest with both hands and deliberately showed a frightened expression. He then screamed loudly, "Oh, I'm so scared." Baldi Jinglin is actually angry. He really came from the west side of Sun City. But Long Jinglin, this young master didn't want to bicker with you before because this young master thought that it's boring to abuse you too many times. You? Long Jinglin flew into a rage and rolled up his sleeves to beat him. Tan Xiao stopped Long Jinglin and looked at Ma Xiaorong, saying, "You look like a decent person, but why do you like to stir up trouble? Is this how the Ma family's head educates his own son?" Ma Xiaorong rolled his eyes and disdainfully said, "Where the hell did you come from, you idiot? What does it have to do with you that I'm talking to Long Jinglin? What's wrong with stirring up trouble? This young master can't afford to provoke you. You can do it if you have the ability." Slap. Tan Xiao slapped Ma Xiaorong's face and then directly kicked his chest, sending him flying 6 or 7 meters away. "Your mouth is dirty, so I'll help you wipe it. But if you dare to show off again, I'll make you never speak another word in your life." After being kicked in the chest, Ma Xiaorong was unable to breathe for a long time. It wasn't until his face turned ashen that he felt a little better. "Bro, you're more awesome than this Long Jinglin. You gave me a good beating, very good. But I've taught Long Jinglin a lesson before, so I can't show my true ability if I play the same trick again. How about this? I'll treat you to lunch, and we can talk about how to do it again while we eat." Lunatic. Tan Xiao felt a slight headache after hearing his heartfelt words. He wasn't afraid of a real lunatic, but he was afraid of those who played the fool. What he was afraid of were those with a one-track mind and extreme character. A trace of anger finally appeared on Ma Xiaorong's face as he seriously said, "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf or something? Let's have a game. No matter who wins or loses, we'll let the matter of you hitting me go." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, You're not worthy. If you're not an annoying fly, then scram as far as you can." Ma Xiaorong clapped his hands and felt more satisfied. Despite the pain in his chest and the burning sensation on his face, he seemed to have found a fun game. He intended to stare at Tan Xiao shamelessly and even followed Tan Xiao. "Are you going to scram or not? I'll hit you now if you don't." Tan Xiao raised his palm and made a gesture to hit him. Ma Xiaorong quickly took out his cell phone and turned around to hand it to a bodyguard behind him. He then directly sat on the floor and said, "Come on, hit me. The more pain, the better." Chapter 772. Tan Xiao had never cared about his demeanor, nor was he afraid of the Ma family's influence in Tianjing City. He looked at the ruffian Ma Xiaorong as his fists rained down on his face. He screamed. But there was no sound, because every time Ma Xiaorong was about to scream, Tan Xiao's fists would hit his mouth. Finally, after Tan Xiao's last blow broke his nose, Tan Xiao kicked Ma Xiaorong again under the dumbfounded expressions of the surrounding people. What was a brutal beating? Although Tan Xiao didn't use much of his strength, he still beat Ma Xiaorong to the point that he wanted to die. He curled up on the ground like a shrimp and kept twitching. "Stop!" Finally, one of Ma Xiaorong's bodyguards reacted. He angrily shouted and immediately attacked Tan Xiao. Unfortunately, he was sent flying by Tan Xiao's punch before he could get close to Tan Xiao. Like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, he rushed to the front of the other bodyguards. After a series of fierce attacks, all of Ma Xiaorong's bodyguards were knocked down, screaming and twitching on the ground. Tan Xiao clapped his hands and heaved a sigh of relief. With a satisfied smile, he said, "Did you see that, Long Jinglin? You have to beat this unreasonable and reckless brat ruthlessly. If you can't accept it once, then beat him twice. If he still can't accept it after 2 times, then beat him 20 times, or even 200 times. Going to the gym to exercise these days also costs money, so this kind of human target is better than going to the gym to exercise." Long Jinglin's mouth fiercely twitched twice as he looked up at the sky. He wasn't a freak like Tan Xiao. Not to mention that he didn't have Tan Xiao's combat power. Even if he did, he still needed to weigh the strength of Tianjing's Ma family. Obviously, Ma Xiaorong wasn't someone he could bully. A few minutes later, Tan Xiao and Long Jinglin swaggered out of the Mingyuan resort. When the resort's owner, Ren Qi, Arrived in a hurry and saw the wailing people on the ground, he immediately felt a headache. He helplessly patted his forehead and then walked to Ma Xiaorong's side, gently kicked him, and asked, "You're not dead, right? If you can stand up, then hurry up and get up. Otherwise, I'll have to call 120. Ma Xiaorong crawled up from the ground. Even though he was still sore all over, he still wiped his nosebleed and tears and shouted incoherently, "Hey, Ren, if you dare to call 120, I'll fight you to the death. Motherfucker, where did that bastard who hit me come from?" Ren Qi rolled his eyes and ignored him. He turned around and asked the people nearby to figure out the ins and outs of the matter. Then, he looked at Ma Xiaorong with a headache and unhappily said, "Hey, can't you surnamed Ma know your place? A few days ago, your Ma family's third brother got drunk at my place and caused a ruckus, and you actually created such a mess for me. Do you want me to hang a sign at the gate that says surnamed Ma is not allowed to enter? My third brother is my third brother, and I, Ma Weibo, am Ma Weibo." Ma Xiaorong angrily said, "Motherfucker, this young master has suffered a loss today, but this matter is not over yet. That bastard Long Jinglin has eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. He even brought a dog to bite me. I'm gonna chop him into pieces. I don't care if you're called Ma Weibo, Ma Xiaorong, or fourth brother Ma," Ren Qi angrily said. "Please don't give me any more trouble. You know Long Jinglin's origin. He's the second son of the Long family in Shuangqing Province's Star City. You also know how much power the Long family has. You don't have the ability to go against the Long family. As for that Ten Xiu, I advise you not to provoke him. For Long Jinglin to regard him as his big brother, I'm afraid his origin is much stronger than his." "You mean I got beaten up for nothing?" Ma Xiaorong angrily said. "Is there something wrong with your brain, or is there something wrong with mine? Tan Xiu, isn't he? I'll remember him. As long as he's still in Tianjing City within 2 hours, I'll make him crawl out of Tianjing." Ren Qi was speechless. He could only helplessly shake his head as he watched Ma Xiaorong angrily leave with his hapless bodyguards. After thinking for a while, he took out his mobile and dialed Long Jinglin's number. After the call was connected, he forced a smile and said, "Second young Master Long, even if your brother came to play, you don't need to play this big, right? It's not like you don't know what kind of person fourth brother Ma is. Isn't this just drawing hatred?" "It's fine," Long Jinglin replied perfunctorily. Ren Qi helplessly sighed and said, "Forget it. I won't meddle in your affairs. If you can't handle it, then go hide first. That lunatic probably went home to find his brother. You should also persuade your brother to leave Tianjing City as soon as possible. You're well aware of the Ma family's power in Tianjing City. Don't worry. I know what to do." Tianjing City, Hongshan District. The Ma family's vast estate was built here. As early as the anti-Japanese war era, the Ma family was a famous and distinguished family in Tianjing City, as well as a powerful landlord. Most of the elders of the Ma family had gone abroad and studied abroad. Due to their high ideological awareness, they clearly chose the successor team of the Communist Party during the anti-Japanese war, so they smoothly passed through the anti-Japanese war era. With the wealth and connections left by their ancestors, coupled with decades of development, the Ma family now possessed great power. Even the newly emerged powerful families in Tianjing City had a big gap with the Ma family. The Ma family's manor, which occupied hundreds of acres of land, had a very distinct hierarchy. Because the north side of the manor was close to a mountain, the further north the manor was, the greater the authority of the people living there and the more core members of the family were. Cough, cough. In the middle of the northernmost part of the Ma family's manor was an antique attic that constantly coughed. Outside the attic, dozens of core members of the Ma family were gathered. Each and every one of them had a worried look on their faces as their eyes constantly swept over the closed door. Creak. The door was opened from the inside, and a white-haired old man wearing a gray coat walked out with a few doctors. Among these doctors, there was a rather famous cardiologist in Tianjing City who had a high level of expertise in Western medicine. There were also 2 Chinese physicians with superb medical skills. However, at this moment, whether it was the white-haired old man or the 5 doctors, All of them had a very solemn expression. The people waiting outside the door had a bad premonition when they saw their solemn expressions. Second uncle, doctors, how is my father's condition? Asked the Ma family's patriarch, Ma Jianfeng, hurriedly. The white-haired old man shook his head and bitterly said, his condition is very serious. Even if we send him to a big city like Shanghai or the imperial capital, I'm afraid there's nothing we can do to save him. Ma Jianfeng's heart trembled. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he swallowed the words that were just about to come out of his mouth after seeing the 5 doctors' expressions. We'll take our leave first. One of them, a middle-aged man in a white coat, sighed and walked out. The others didn't hesitate and quickly followed him. However, one of them was a middle-aged man in his 40s who wore ordinary clothes. After walking for 7 or 8 steps, he suddenly stopped. After thinking for a while, he turned back to Ma Jianfeng and the others, took a deep breath and said, Jianfeng, we're old friends, so I'll give you an idea. Although I can't guarantee that it'll work, there's still a good chance as long as they're willing to help. Ma Jianfeng stared blankly and hurriedly asked, you mean they are? I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner and I'm familiar with a lot of things in the Chinese medicine field, said the middle-aged man. Your father's condition is very serious and we're at a loss. But there are still some powerful Chinese medicine practitioners in our country. To be precise, they're even hailed as divine doctors. I know 3 of them. Aside from divine Dr. Leng who disappeared more than a decade ago, there's also divine Dr. Gui Jianchou whose whereabouts are uncertain. The other one was the young divine doctor with superb medical skills, Tang Xiu, who had risen to fame in recent years. Perhaps your father can live for a few more years if they're willing to help. How can we find them? Asked Ma Jianfeng hurriedly. I really don't know the whereabouts of divine Dr. Gui Jianchou, said the middle-aged man. But I know something about the young divine Dr. Tan Xiu. He's a doctor at the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, but he's hardly on duty there now. Rumor has it that the young divine Dr. Tan Xiu is studying at Demon City University, but I can't guarantee whether it's true or not. Your Ma family has a wide network, so you just need to check it out. I'll send someone to check it out right away, said Ma Jianfeng without hesitation. I'm willing to pay any price for my father. The white-haired old man also heavily nodded and said, that's right. Even if my Ma family has to spend hundreds of millions of our family's wealth, we must do it as long as we can cure Big Brother. At this time, an off-road vehicle roared as the emergency brake sound was heard and the door was forcefully pushed open. Ma Xiaorong, who had a bloody nose and swollen face, jumped out of the driver's seat and shouted, I heard there's a doctor in our house. Where is he? Hurry up and treat my injuries. Dozens of core members of the Ma family, as well as the middle-aged Chinese medical doctor who stayed temporarily, stared blankly. At this moment, Ma Xiaorong's appearance looked very miserable. Aside from the injuries on his face, there were also many footprints on his clothes. Ma Jianfeng was in a bad mood. Seeing his son's appearance, he immediately became angry and shouted, What happened to you? Where have you been fooling around? Ma Xiaorong was not afraid of anything, but he was afraid of his father. Upon hearing the reprimand, he immediately shrunk his head and turned around to go back to the car. Stop! Ma Jianfeng angrily shouted. Ma Xiaorong stopped with a bit of fear and said with a bit of fear, Dad, I'm already injured. You won't beat me, will you? Look at my nose. Look at my mouth. I'm that damned Long Jinglin from Star City and his friend, Tang Xiu. Third brother, why are you here? Why didn't you pick up my call? Let's go and help me take revenge. Ma Jianfeng's face turned completely dark. In the crowd of the Ma family, Ma Weikong shrunk his neck and angrily glared at Ma Xiaorong. Even if he wanted to take revenge, there was no need to say it so loudly in front of so many family members, right? Chapter 773. Jiang Kun was the vice president of the Tianjin Chinese Medicine Association and had superb Chinese medical skills. It could be said that he was the VIP of countless people in Tianjin, and the Ma family was no exception. Furthermore, he knew the Ma family's patriarch, Ma Jianfeng, more than 20 years ago and they had a very good personal relationship. Therefore Jiang Kuan knew Ma Jianfeng's situation and also knew that he had a good-for-nothing son. People said that dragons give birth to dragons and phoenixes give birth to phoenixes. But in his opinion, Ma Jianfeng was a powerful and capable person, so how could he give birth to such a useless fool? Alas! Jiang Kuan sighed and was about to leave. Suddenly, a flash of lightning flashed in his mind and his complexion suddenly changed. Two names quickly formed in his mind. Star City? Tanxiu? He instantly stepped forward and stood in front of Ma Xiaorong, asking in a deep voice, "You just said that Tanxiu, where is he from?" His question made Ma Jianfeng's complexion slightly change. Even the dozens of core members of the Ma family in the surroundings also had their expressions moved. Who knows where this bastard came from? Ma Xiaorong angrily said. "Shut the fuck up." Ma Jianfeng angrily shouted. "Answer your Uncle Jiang immediately. What's Tan Xiu's origin?" "Didn't you tell me to shut up?" Ma Xiaorong muttered and then honestly said, "I really don't know where he came from. I only know that he's with the second son of the Long family, Long Jinglin." Jiang Kuan pondered for a moment and asked, "How old is he? How does he look? Does he have any obvious features?" "He's 21 or 22 years old. He's very handsome, but not as handsome as me. As for any obvious features, I didn't notice." "You're handsome? Handsome my ass. You're even worse than a pig now." Jiang Kuan cursed inside and turned to look at Ma Jianfeng, saying, "I've seen Tan Xiu's photo. He's indeed very handsome and he's about 21 years old. If you have a smartphone, you can directly search his information on the internet." Ma Jianfeng's expression changed. He immediately took out his phone and searched for Tan Xiu's information. Soon he found Tan Xiu's photo. He handed the phone to Ma Xiaorong and shouted in a deep voice, "Take a look at this photo. Is this the person in the photo?" Ma Xiaorong glanced around and immediately shouted, "That's right. It's this bastard. He beat me up like this." "Pa." Ma Jianfeng raised his hand and slapped Ma Xiaorong's face, causing him to fall on his butt. Under everyone's watchful eyes, he even kicked Ma Xiaorong several times and angrily shouted, "You bastard! How did I give birth to such a bastard son like you? Do you know who he is? He is the young miracle-working doctor, Tan Xiu. Your grandfather is still waiting for him to save his life. You actually had a conflict with him? I'll beat you to death." Several senior members of the Ma family hurriedly stopped Ma Jianfeng, but one of them still pointed at Ma Xiaorong and cursed, "You bastard! You never did any proper work and stirred up trouble before, but I didn't expect you to poke the hornet's nest today. If your father didn't beat you just now, I would have beaten you up myself." Ma Xiaorong was beaten silly and was even more tongue-tied after being scolded. What happened to my grandfather?" Ma Xiaorong slumped on the ground and asked while covering his swollen cheek. His question nearly made the Ma family's core members' noses crooked. Some of them even wanted to beat this brat to death. All the core members of the Ma family had received the notice that the old man was seriously ill. But the result? They called Ma Xiaorong several times and sent several text messages, yet they couldn't contact him. But now, he even had the face to ask what happened to the old man? Ma Jianfeng was stopped by several of his family members, but his anger was getting more intense. He gasped for breath and roared loudly, "Cut off all the pocket money of this bastard from today onward and take back all his cars and houses outside. If anyone from our family dares to help him secretly, I'll drive him out of the family and never let him come back. Spread the news to his scoundrels outside. Whoever dares to lend him money on credit is tantamount to going against our Ma family. Let them wait for our revenge." "Big brother," Ma Xiaorong's aunt quickly called out. Ma Jianfeng steeled his heart and roared, "Don't try to persuade me. Whoever dares to do so will also get the fuck out of the Ma family. This bastard has been stirring up trouble all day long. If we don't teach him a lesson, he'll bring trouble to our family in the future." For a moment, everyone fell into silence. Ma Jianfeng had absolute prestige in the Ma family, so no one dared to provoke him at this time. Ma Jianfeng took a deep breath, turned his head and said, "Immediately investigate Tan Xiu's whereabouts. Since he happens to be in Tianjing City, you must find him in the shortest time possible." Remember, don't disturb him after you find him. I'll see him in person and apologize to him. Immediately, several core members of the Ma family strode away. After leaving the Mingyuan resort, Tan Xiao and Long Jinglin hurried to the residential area where Long Jinglin lived. Tan Xiao was eager for Long Jinglin to rush to Qingqing Mountain and find the whereabouts of the red silk flower. I'll return to Shanghai first and rush to Jingmen Island early tomorrow morning. As for the red silk flower, I'll leave it to you. You must get it no matter what the cost. But don't worry if the other party really doesn't want to sell it. Calm him down first and wait for me to come back. I'll contact you immediately and we'll figure out a solution then. I understand. Long Jinglin nodded. Tan Xiao patted Long Jinglin's shoulder and said, "Leave Tianjing City as soon as possible. That brat old fourth Ma is not a good person, so don't provoke him for the time being. I'll deal with him when I come back." Long Jinglin grinned and said, "I naturally believe in your ability, Big Bro Tang." Long Jinglin grinned and said, "All right, you don't need to explain anymore. Hurry back to Shanghai, I'll pack my things and then rush to Qingqing Mountain." "All right," Tan Xiao replied and turned back to sit in the car. Half an hour later, just as he drove on the highway, he glanced at the rearview mirror and said, "Boss, 2 cars have been following us for several minutes." Tan Xiao looked back and indifferently said, "Don't pay attention to them. If they are from the Ma family, we won't be polite if they dare to attack us on our way back." "All right." Mo nodded. However, it didn't take long before the 2 black SUVs behind suddenly sped up and overtook Mo's car. One on the left and the other on the right blocked the front while slowly decelerating. Just as Mo was about to change the lane and overtake them, the window of one of the cars suddenly opened. A middle-aged man poked his head out and waved to the back, signaling for the car to stop on the roadside. "Stop," Tan Xiao said indifferently. Mo parked the car on the roadside and directly got off the car. He then stood at the back door and watched the 2 cars in front stop. 4 middle-aged men followed a refined middle-aged man and asked indifferently, "What's the matter?" "Excuse me, is the one sitting in the car Tan Xiao, Divine Dr. Tang?" asked the middle-aged man with a smile. "Or you?" asked Mo with a frown. "I'm Ma Jiandong of the Ma family, and the Ma family's patriarch, Ma Jianfeng, is my big brother," said the middle-aged man with a smile. "I was ordered by my big brother to invite Divine Dr. Tang to my Ma family as a guest. Also, my big brother is on the way and will be here in half an hour at most." Tan Xiao opened the window and looked at Ma Jiandong outside. Then he lightly said, "The Ma family invited me as a guest? Do you want to play the Hongmen banquet?" Ma Jiandong understood the meaning of Tan Xiao's words and forced a wry smile. "You misunderstood, Divine Dr. Tang. My Ma family has absolutely no intention to play the Hongmen banquet. The reason why we invited you is that my big brother wants to apologize to you in person. I hope that you, a great man of great stature, won't stoop to the same level as my good-for-nothing nephew." A glint flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes. If it's not a Hongmen banquet, why would they want to apologize to me with such great fanfare? Could it be that the Ma family has something to ask of me? Also, this man addressed me as Divine Dr. Tang. Could it be that someone in the Ma family is sick and wants me to treat him? I'm sorry. I don't want to have anything to do with the Ma family, said Tan Xiao with an indifferent smile. Don't waste my time if you just want to apologize. Ma Jiandong quickly said, Divine Dr. Tang, actually, we have something to ask of you. Just spit it out. Tan Xiao said. I'm in a hurry to return to Magic City. Ma Jiandong hesitated for a moment and bitterly said, My father is seriously ill and I want to ask you to treat him, Divine Dr. Tang. The vice president of the Tianjing Chinese Medicine Association, Jiang Kuan, is a good friend of my big brother. He recommended you, thinking that your medical skills are superb and can save my father. I don't have time. Tan Xiao straightforwardly refused. Divine Dr. Tang, our Ma family is begging you. Please save my father for the sake of our filial piety. Begged Ma Jiandong. My big brother said that our Ma family is willing to pay any price. As long as you can cure my father's illness. You won't let me go if I don't agree, Will you? Tan Xiu sneered. Ma Jiandong stared blankly and hesitated for a while before he forced a smile and said, Divine Dr. Tang, my big brother gave me a death order to keep you here no matter what. Even if you want me to kowtow to you, I'm willing as long as you can stay and wait for him. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and lightly said, This is not a place to stay for long. Let's go to the service area first. Don't worry. I won't make things difficult for you for the sake of your filial piety. Thank you. Thank you, Divine Dr. Tang. Ma Jiandong was overjoyed and immediately returned to the 2 cars in the front with the 4 middle-aged men and started the car to move forward. At the service area of Hong Kong Expressway, after waiting for more than 20 minutes, more than a dozen cars arrived. As a group of people got off the cars, the Ma family's patriarch, Ma Jianfeng, rushed to the front and quickly came to Tan Xiu's car. Are you Divine Dr. Tang? Chapter 774. Ma Jianfeng's attitude was very humble. After all, he had a favor to ask, and his bastard son had offended him. So, he stood outside the car window, bowed and smiled, covering up the gloomy feelings in his heart. Bam, Tan Xiu came out of the car. After closing the door, he looked at Ma Jianfeng and nodded. That's right. I'm Tan Xiu. What's your name? Ma Jianfeng, Jian as in construction and Feng as in mountain peak. It turns out to be Patriarch Ma. Nice to meet you. Tang Xiu let out a smile. He was not the kind of hot-headed young man who was full of youthful vigor. Since the Ma family's patriarch had put himself in such a humble position, it was not good for him to act too arrogant. The Ma family was, after all, one of the biggest families in Tianjin City. It was not easy for Ma Jianfeng to do this. They shook hands, chatted and laughed. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Tan Xiu slowly said, I already know Patriarch Ma's intention for going through so much trouble. But let's get the ugly words out of the way first. I don't know anything about the Ma family's old patriarch's condition. I don't even know what kind of illness it is, so I don't dare to guarantee that I can cure him. Ma Jianfeng put away his smile and seriously said, I understand what you said, Divine Dr. Tang. But I hope you can do your best. It can be said that you're the last life-saving straw to cure my father. We'll try our best to fulfill your request no matter what it is. A strange light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. He waved and said, Treating and saving people is the duty of us doctors, so forget about the request. I've heard that the Ma family is a very good family with a good reputation both in Tianjin City and the whole country. You flatter me, Divine Dr. Tang, said Ma Jianfeng modestly. Actually, I'm ashamed that my reckless son offended you. I'll make him apologize to you and sincerely apologize to you, Divine Dr. Tang. Your son? Tan Xiu deliberately pretended to be confused and asked with a puzzled face. Ma Jianfeng stared blankly and asked in surprise, You don't know Ma Xiaorong, Divine Dr. Tang? He is my 4th son. Tang Xiu's face instantly turned cold. Under the watchful eyes of the Ma family, he opened the car's door and sat inside. Then, he spoke to Mo through the window in a deep voice, go back to Shanghai. Ma Jianfeng's heart thumped and he quickly said with a smile, Divine Dr. Tang, I know it's all my son's fault. A great man like you shouldn't stoop to petty offenses committed by a lowly man like me. Please don't stoop to my good-for-nothing son's level. Tan Xiu replied indifferently, I originally thought that the Ma family was as good as rumored, but I didn't expect that the descendants of this family are so unbearable. My friend told me that Ma Xiaorong is a hooligan from Tianjin City. He uses his family's power to commit crimes. I've seen it for myself. Last night, he bullied a girl at Mingyuan Resort and ordered his group of bodyguards to besiege me. If I didn't know some martial arts, I'm afraid I would have been sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. Ma Jianfeng was shocked inwardly. Although he knew that his 4th son was usually ignorant and incompetent, he didn't expect him to be such a debauchee. Bullying a girl? Ordering his bodyguards to besiege others? Suddenly, Ma Jianfeng felt that his punishment for his son was too light. If he had known earlier, he would have whipped him dozens of times to make him remember the family's ancestral teachings clearly. Not only him, But many of the core members of the Ma family who came with Ma Jianfeng also heard Tan Xiu's words clearly. For a time, everyone's face was filled with anger and their evaluation of Ma Xiaorong was extremely bad. In fact, they had done some shameful things, but there was a reason for it. Perhaps it was because of personal grudges or for some benefits. They had never stirred up trouble for no good reason and acted like a tyrant. Ma Jianfeng took a deep breath and seriously said, "Divine Dr. Tang, it's the father's fault for not teaching his son properly. I used to focus on developing the Ma family and neglected to discipline my son. You can rest assured that I'll definitely keep a close eye on him in the future and guarantee that he won't do anything bad again. Although I've punished him this time, it's still not enough. I'll make him taste the consequences of his wrongdoings later." Tan Xiu was silent for half a minute. Then he slowly took out a cigarette and lit it up. After taking a puff, he exhaled the smoke and said, "I can treat and save people, but the visiting fee is indispensable. I hope you can accept my request." "That's only natural. We'll definitely accept it." Ma Jianfeng was depressed. As the Ma family's patriarch, he was naturally astute. How could he not hear the anger in Tan Xiu's heart at this moment? But he couldn't blame him for this. Had it not been for his son offending him, perhaps he wouldn't have made such a ridiculous request. After all, he was a divine doctor. If one wanted to become a divine doctor, the most important thing was to have medical ethics, in addition to having magical medical skills. Behind him, the other core members of the Ma family had their mouths twitch. They hated Ma Xiaorong inside. If it wasn't for that bastard brat, their Ma family wouldn't have been slaughtered by him, right? If Tan Xiu's request was too excessive, they must advise the patriarch to break that bastard brat's leg. It took nearly an hour for the convoy to leave the high-speed service area to arrive at the Ma family's manor. More than 20 cars rushed into the manor and directly stopped in front of the antique pavilion where the Ma family's old patriarch lived in the northernmost area. Tan Xiu's expression slightly moved as soon as he got off the car. With his eyesight, he could easily see the feng shui layout of the Ma family's manor, especially the antique pavilion in front of him. It was like a finishing touch that activated the entire feng shui layout of the Ma family's manor. Fortune? A prosperous family? A century-old clan? Tan Xiu finally understood why the Ma family could go smoothly all these years and develop to such a huge extent. With such a feng shui layout, even if the Ma family's leader was a fool, he wouldn't let the family fall. It was no wonder that Ma Jianfeng alone had 4 sons. "It seems that your Ma family's ancestors have met a benefactor." Tan Xiu turned his head to look at Ma Jianfeng, who was walking over, and said indifferently, "What do you mean by that, Divine Dr. Tang?" asked Ma Jianfeng doubtfully. "It's nothing. I just couldn't help but sigh after seeing the characteristics of the feng shui layout of your Ma family's manor," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "You also know feng shui?" asked Ma Jianfeng, surprised. "If there's no need to be modest, my attainments in feng shui should be better than my medical skills," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "Your Ma family's feng shui layout has the east gate attracting the rising sun violet qi, the north gate locking the fortune and fortune, the south gate leading to the Grand Avenue, and the west gate leading to a roundabout path, bringing thousands of descendants. This pavilion is the eye of the array formation, so presumably there's a small spiritual vein underground that can continuously condense energy. If your father had lived here for a long time, perhaps I would have known the cause of his illness." Ma Jianfeng sucked in a cold breath and looked at Tan Xiu with a shocked expression. The Ma family's feng shui layout was created by a powerful feng shui master 100 years ago. That feng shui master spent more than half a year to complete the arrangement with great painstaking efforts. It had been nearly 100 years. No one had ever been able to see through the mysteries of their Ma family's land. Never did he expect that Tan Xiu would be able to see through the entire feng shui layout so thoroughly. "You're right, Divine Dr. Tang," said Ma Jianfeng hurriedly. "My father has indeed lived in this pavilion all year round. His health was originally very good, and he was still as strong as a young man even at the age of 70. But I don't know why, but his body has been aging at a frightening speed since the end of this year. So much so that he's almost in a comatose state now and only wakes up occasionally. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Your Ma family's providence is too prosperous. You've been prosperous for 100 years, and the accumulated good fortune has finally condensed on one person, your father. Naturally, he's in good health. Even for many years, he's never been sick or stricken, and his health is astounding. It's just a pity." Having said that, Tan Xiu sighed deeply and strode into the pavilion. The power of providence? The moment Tang Xiu stepped into the attic's door, he immediately sensed the rich power of providence inside. This power of providence was extremely special. Although it was not as rich as the massive power of providence stored in the treasure inside his interspatial ring, it was still not to be underestimated. Absorb. Tan Xiu silently operated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis and calmly absorbed the providence power here. He didn't need Ma Jianfeng to point the way and walked step by step toward the stairs. After coming to a room on the second floor, he directly pushed the door and entered. His eyes then fell on an old man lying on the bed. Others couldn't see it, but he could clearly see that the old man lying on the bed was enveloped by the colorful power of karmic luck. Because the power of karmic luck was so dense, even the old man's essence, energy, and spirit were being absorbed by the power of karmic luck. At this rate, the old man on the bed would completely lose his essence, energy, and spirit and die in half a month at most. Tan Xiu turned his head and looked at Ma Jianfeng and several of the most powerful members of the Ma family. He lightly asked, "You're now facing two choices. First, save his life and destroy the Ma family's providence foundation. Second, let him die and ensure that the Ma family continues to prosper for nearly 100 years. Ma Jianfeng's expression greatly changed, and the others also looked aghast. Ma Qingye, Ma Jianfeng's second uncle and an old man with high prestige in the Ma family, took 2 steps forward at this moment and nervously looked at Tan Xiu, asking, "Divine Dr. Tang, is it possible to have both choices?" Tan Xiu shot him a deep look and nodded. These old men of the Ma family are very good. At least they don't have the intention to plot against each other. Yes, but the price is very high. Chapter 775. What's the price to pay, Divine Dr. Tang? Asked Ma Qingye without hesitation. The Ma family won't have another member in the next 5 years, Tan Xiu said lightly. The Ma family will have 10 babies under the age of 3 leave their glabella flower to share the Ma family's fortune. Only one of them will survive in the end. The Ma family will need to gather magic tools of the metal, wood, water, fire, and earth elements to condense their fortune in the next 5 years. One member of the Ma family will sacrifice his lifespan for 10 years to pray for blessings. Ma Jianhua, Ma Qingye, and the other 4 high-ranking members of the Ma family gasped at the same time and looked at Tan Xiu in horror. This price, wasn't it too terrifying? It's not like you won't get any benefits if you choose this, said Tan Xiu flatly. At the very least, the child who survives will become the hope of the Ma family in the future. As long as no evil feng shui master destroys your family's feng shui, he can lead the Ma family to go further and become stronger. Ma Jianfeng was silent for a long time and then bitterly said, "Divine Dr. Tang, this is a very important matter. I need to discuss it with the family's top brass." While pointing to the old man on the bed, Tang Xiu lightly said, "He can only hold on for half a month at most. If you don't make a decision within half a month, then only death awaits him. Your Ma family will probably decline after you hand over your power and authority. Further, I'll be back in Shanghai tonight at the latest since I have an important matter to deal with tomorrow. I don't know when I'll be back. Therefore, you only have one afternoon to discuss it." One afternoon? The Ma family's complexion changed and they quickly exchanged glances. Ma Jianfeng then solemnly said, "Divine Dr. Tang, do you still want to diagnose my father?" Tan Xiu nodded and walked to the bed to buckle the old man's wrist. After checking the pulse, he judged the old man's physical condition and found that it was no different from his previous judgment. After leaving the room and coming to the first floor, he said, "Find me a quiet room. I need to write something." "My father's study is at the end of the left corridor," said Ma Jianfeng immediately. Tan Xiu nodded and followed Ma Jianfeng to the study. He looked around the antique study and finally his eyes fell on the writing brush, ink, paper, and inkstone on the desk. In this day and age, there were not many scholars who could still possess the four treasures of the study, especially when the walls around the room were covered with calligraphy and paintings from ancient and modern masters and painters. Being here, one could feel the aura of Confucianism and Taoism. What else do you need, Divine Dr. Tang? Ma Jianfeng asked. Cinnabar ink, yellow paper, Tan Xiu said. If you're sure you want to save your father, you'll need 10 more unpolished jades. I'll immediately send someone to find him, said Ma Jianfeng in a deep voice. Also, I still have to discuss this matter with the other members of the family, so I won't be accompanying you here. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, Go. Just send someone to bring some food over later. Ma Jianfeng stared blankly for a moment. Then, he suddenly remembered that it was already noon and Tan Xiu hadn't eaten yet. A smile appeared on his dignified face as he complied and left with the rest of the Ma family. Mo stood at the desk and watched Ma Jianfeng close the door from the outside. He immediately lowered his voice and asked, Boss, are you going to rip them off? A faint smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he asked, Don't you think it's a pity that the Ma family has so much wealth and can't use it? I'm kind-hearted, so I intend to help them spend some money or share some other treasures. This is a good deed. Mo's heart twitched a few times as he looked at Tan Xiu speechlessly. He had been following Tang Xiu for more than a day or two, and he had seen Tang Xiu's moves many times. The way Tang Xiu brutally slaughtered others made him shudder. Soon after, the fragrant dishes were delivered. Just as Tan Xiu and Mo were satiated, the Ma family's clansmen sent them the best cinnabar ink and 10 pieces of jade. After Tan Xiu sent them away, he immediately began to draw talismans and craft magic tools. In the evening, Ma Jianfeng came to Tan Xiu's study room with a gloomy expression. This time, only his second uncle, Ma Qingye, came with him. Tan Xiu looked at their expressions and understood their choice. He sighed inwardly and indifferently said, You've chosen to give up the Ma family's old patriarch, so I don't need to do anything else. I've made talismans and magic tools, but you don't need them anymore, so I'll give you the corresponding money according to the market price. Ma Jianfeng took a deep breath and seriously asked, It seems that you've already guessed the result, Divine Dr. Tang. As a matter of fact, I really want to save my father, but there's really nothing I can do. The Ma family has a lot of people, but the whole family will have no descendants in the next 5 years, and you'll have to use 10 children to do it. Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him and calmly said, I understand your difficulties. Then we'll take our leave first. Someone will naturally send you the money for the cinnabar ink and the jade tomorrow. Ma Jianfeng quickly said, Divine Dr. Tang, do you have a way to temporarily preserve my father's life? 10 months, just 10 months is enough. I don't get what you're thinking. Tan Xiu knitted his brows. Ma Jianfeng steeled his heart and gritted his teeth. 10 months is enough for the Ma family to have a lot of new members. As long as we can gather 10 people at that time, we'll choose to save my father. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and carefully observed Ma Jianfeng a few times. Then he indifferently said, I do have a way to make your father live for a year and a half, but I'll have to pay a big price for it. I want to know what kind of price your family can pay for it. What do you need to pay, sir? Asked Ma Jianfeng. I need to pay twice the lifespan. Tan Xiu lied with his eyes wide open. This? Ma Jianfeng and Ma Qingye exchanged glances and gasped while silently calculating what price to pay for Tan Xiu to pay the price of his lifespan. After a long while, Divine Dr. Tang, feel free to tell me what you need. We'll do our best as long as it's within our means, said Ma Jianfeng in a deep voice. Ores, at least 10 fist-sized precious ores, plus 1 billion renminbi, said Tan Xiu lightly. Of course, if your family has some strange things that can catch my eye, I can forget about 1 billion renminbi. Ma Jianfeng pondered for a moment and then straightforwardly said, 10 precious ores for 1 billion renminbi. Give my family one night and I guarantee that I'll give it to you before midnight. Alright. Tan Xiu replied and went straight to the room on the second floor where the old patriarch of the Ma family was. Ma Jianfeng and the others wanted to follow him inside, but Tan Xiu stopped them. After entering the room, Tan Xiu took out a holy healing pill, broke half of it and stuffed it into the old patriarch's mouth. Then he walked to the side and sat cross-legged. Half a holy healing pill was enough to greatly enhance the old patriarch's vitality. Furthermore, as long as the old patriarch moved out of this pavilion, it wouldn't be a problem for him to live for another year. Time ticked by. 3 hours later, Tang Xiu controlled his qi and blood, deliberately making his complexion pale and beads of sweat appear on his forehead. He looked at the Ma family's old patriarch, whose breathing had stabilized on the bed, and then walked out of the room with weak footsteps. "Divine Dr. Tang, are you all right?" Upon seeing Tan Xiu's appearance, Ma Jianfeng's heart skipped a beat and he hurriedly held Tan Xiu's arm and asked. Tan Xiu squeezed out a smile with difficulty and shook his head. "I'm fine. It's just that I suddenly extracted my life force and injected it into the old patriarch's body. It consumed too much of my mental and physical strength. Your father is fine for the time being. As long as you move him out of this pavilion and send someone else to live here, there won't be any problem." "It's not a problem to move my father to another place, but why do you want to send someone else to live here?" asked Ma Jianfeng. "The human body is the most primitive feng shui array, and only a person can continue to receive the power of destiny and destiny to ensure the Ma family's destiny," said Tan Xiu. "Else, not only will your family's feng shui array no longer be beneficial to you, it will also cause your family to decline rapidly. Extreme prosperity is bound to decline, and it's the fruit of the cycle of the heavenly Tao." Ma Jianfeng suddenly understood, but he still asked, "Will the new people who move in encounter the same situation as my father?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Not only will there be no harm in living here for a year and a half, you'll also get some benefits. As for what the benefits are, you'll find out later." "I'll immediately send someone to move my father out," said Ma Jianfeng immediately. "Divine Dr. Tang, why don't you go to my father's study room and wait for a while? I'll immediately come over after I'm done with my work. I'll give you 10 precious ores and 1 billion renminbi when the time comes." Alright. Tan Xiu naturally didn't want to leave the pavilion immediately. Although he had been desperately absorbing the power of destiny and destiny here for the whole afternoon and night, the amount he absorbed was still less than 1/10. If it wasn't for the fact that he still had something to do tomorrow, he really wanted to stay here until he absorbed all the power of destiny and destiny here. It must be noted that the power of destiny and destiny here was different from the one in the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal. The power of destiny and destiny here was very mild and didn't crazily drill into his body when he absorbed it. As for the huge power of destiny and destiny in the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal, it crazily poured into his body when he just tried to absorb it, nearly causing his body to explode and die. The Ma family's reputation was quite good. After waiting for less than half an hour, Ma Jianfeng hurriedly returned and ordered 5 stalwart men to put 5 trays of 10 precious ores on the table in front of Tan Xiu. He waved his hand to signal them to leave and immediately took out a bank card, saying, "Divine Dr. Tang, there's 1 billion yuan in this bank card and the password is written on the back. As for these 10 precious ores, please appraise them. I'll immediately send someone to exchange them if you don't like them." Tan Xiu casually put the bank card into his pocket and then lifted the yellow cloth on the tray. The first thing he saw was a black stone. "This is..." Tan Xiu's heart thumped wildly and disbelief filled his eyes. Chapter 776. Magic Stone? A sealed magic stone? Tan Xiu's eyes were fixated on the fist-sized black magic stone. His heartbeat sped up. He once thought that the small coffin made of magic stone did not belong to this world. Therefore, he always absorbed the magic power inside the magic stone with the thought that he would consume as little as possible. At this moment, he finally realized that magic stones did exist on Earth. Otherwise, it would be impossible for one to appear here. He needed magic stones. If he could have a steady supply of them, he would be able to strengthen his physique to the first stage of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, star's tyrannical body great perfection stage. Tan Xiu looked at Ma Jianfeng and asked in a deep voice, "Patriarch Ma, where did you get this ore?" Ma Jianfeng thought for a while and said, "I don't know exactly where I got it from. My Ma family has a large population, and many of our juniors will get their hands on precious items from the outside and then exchange them for money or positions in the family. However, I do have some impression of it. It's very sturdy. Even divine weapons can hardly leave a mark on it." Tan Xiu took a deep breath and said, "I'll have to trouble Patriarch Ma to help me ask where this ore came from. If you can give me a satisfactory answer, I'll help you solve the problem of old Master Ma and solve your family's problems for free." Ma Jianfeng's complexion changed. He nodded without hesitation and said, "No problem. I'll check it out immediately." However, half an hour later, Ma Jianfeng returned dejectedly and looked at Tan Xiu's expectant eyes. He forced a smile and said, "I found it, but it's not the origin of this ore. This ore was brought back from the outside 60 or 70 years ago by a member of my Ma family. He didn't leave any information about this ore and died more than 30 years ago." Tan Xiu nodded with a disappointed face. After putting away the 10 precious ores, he said, "I won't stay long since the Ma family's problem has been solved for the time being. I'll definitely return to the Ma family within a year and completely solve the feng shui problem of the Ma family. I'll see you off." Ma Jianfeng respectfully sent Tan Xiu out of the Ma family manor and watched the car drive away. He silently turned his head to look at the robust Ma Qingye and thoughtfully said, "Second uncle, this Tan Xiu is indeed not a simple man. Fortunately, we didn't completely offend him. Otherwise, I'm afraid our Ma family would have been doomed." "You're right." Ma Qingye nodded and sighed. Our Ma family wouldn't have attached so much importance to him if he was just a divine doctor. But he turned out to be a feng shui master, which was simply amazing. Whether it was in ancient times or now, who would dare to offend a powerful feng shui master? If this kind of people were to be provoked, they would set up a sinister feng shui formation on the other party's ancestral grave, which could definitely kill them without leaving a trace. "Jianfeng, your fourth son is too outrageous. In my opinion, he should be severely punished as a warning to others." Ma Jianfeng, who had long been disappointed with his fourth son, Ma Xiaorong, replied in a heavy tone, "That little bastard almost destroyed our Ma family. He must be severely punished for this. Second uncle, I'll have to trouble you to order that little bastard to repent and turn over a new leaf in the ancestral hall for 3 years. Also, spread the news that Tan Xiu is a distinguished guest of our Ma family. Whoever dares to make an enemy of Tan Xiu will be our Ma family's enemy in the future." Ma Qingye hesitated for a moment and said, "Isn't this decision a bit hasty? We haven't thoroughly investigated Tan Xiu's identity yet." A smile appeared on Ma Jianfeng's dignified face as he said, "I received a message about 10 minutes ago. What do you think of Tan Xiu's identity and background?" "What do you think?" Ma Qingye's expression moved and hurriedly asked. "He's a long-lost descendant of the Tang family in the imperial capital," said Ma Jianfeng with a smile. "He's deeply loved by the Tang family's patriarch. You must know that Tan Xiu has a group of experts around him. I've asked the guards and the bodyguard who beat my fourth son. Finally, I can confirm that Tan Xiu has at least one martial arts grandmaster as his subordinate." "Martial arts grandmaster? He's someone else's subordinate?" Ma Qingye stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded and said, "It should be correct. Only the Tang family has such a great ability to send a martial arts grandmaster to protect Tan Xiu." That night, the news that the fourth son of the Ma family, Ma Xiaorong, was beaten and then severely punished by the family spread throughout Tianjing City as though it had grown wings. Even some influential people in several nearby cities also got the news that the Ma family and Tan Xiu were on good terms. Tan Xiu. They had heard of this name before and knew that he was the young miracle-working doctor of the Shuangqing province's Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. He had appeared in various media channels many times and had been exposed many times. Mingyuan Resort. Ren Qi was listlessly nestled on the soft sofa, quietly watching the news on the TV. Although he was not a member of the system and didn't need to know the political content in the news, he still persisted. It was because this was the habit of watching the news that his father had trained him since childhood. Knock, knock. The door was knocked as a young woman with a pretty face and a thin veil draped over her shoulders came in. She walked gracefully toward Ren-Chi and asked with a smile, "What are you thinking about? Why are you so distracted while watching the news?" Ren-Chi forced a smile and said, "I just received the news that Fourth Ma has encountered a ruthless person and was severely punished by the family elders. It's estimated that we won't be able to see him for the next 3 years." The young woman was surprised and asked, "What happened? Isn't the Ma family's patriarch, Ma Jianfeng, very fond of his fourth son?" "I don't know the specific details, but it's definitely related to Tan Xiu." Ren-Chi shook his head. Because after the Ma family spread the news that Fourth Ma was severely punished, they immediately released another news that Tan Xiu and the Ma family have a deep relationship. Whoever opposes Tan Xiu is the same as going against the Ma family. The young woman was shocked and said, "Those foxes of the Ma family can actually release such news? It seems that the relationship between the Ma family and Tan Xiu is extremely close." "It should be very close. But I seem to have done something wrong." Ren-Chi forced a smile and said. "What is it?" asked the young woman. "Tan Xiu came to our Mingyuan resort today, but I didn't recognize him at that time. I didn't expect that he's the young miracle-working doctor, Tan Xiu. There's one thing you may not know. The big boss behind the magnificent Tang Corporation is the young miracle-working doctor, Tan Xiu. Furthermore, I've sent people to investigate. Tan Xiu is a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital. He's the beloved grandson of the Tang family's patriarch. Even if Tan Xiu's identity is very powerful and you didn't recognize him, it doesn't matter, does it?" The young woman was surprised. "You don't understand." Ren-Chi shook his head and sighed. "He's Long Jinglin's brother, and they have a very good relationship. If I can borrow Long Jinglin's face to make friends with Tan Xiu, it will be of great benefit to me and the Ren family in the future. Don't forget that the Tang family is one of the top super families in the entire Huaxia." The young woman could be considered as a smart person and understood it immediately. Although she didn't care much about connections and benefits, she could still realize that Ren-Chi had missed a great opportunity. Shanghai. After returning from Tianjing City, Tan Xiu immediately packed up his things and boarded the train to Jingmen Island overnight. Since he had bought a sleeping berth, he only needed to sleep at night and would be able to arrive at Jingmen Island by noon the next morning. This time, Tan Xiu didn't bring Mo and the others with him since he only got one quota to explore the 3-star vestige. Therefore, he couldn't bring Mo with him and could only wait in Shanghai. Before leaving, he told his close friends about his whereabouts. But he only said that he was going on a long journey and didn't tell them his destination. Jingmen Island. In a remote and small port in the southeast, dozens of dilapidated fishing boats were anchored on the shore, and many fishermen were coming and going with a fishy smell. Wang Xiaodong had his own fishing boat. In previous years, he would always go out to sea to catch fish and then trade with the fishmongers. But today, despite the sun shining brightly, he still didn't show any signs of going out to sea. He lazily lay on the deck of the fishing boat with his hands as a pillow and legs crossed, leisurely watching the busy figures of the familiar people around him. Occasionally, some fishermen joked with him, but he only gave a perfunctory response. Wang Xiaodong. On the shore, 2 men and 2 women stopped, and the burly middle-aged man among them asked in a deep voice. Wang Xiaodong squinted his eyes and immediately jumped up when he saw who it was. He whistled as his eyes greedily moved away from the 2 graceful and beautiful women and said aloud, "That's right, I'm Wang Xiaodong. Why are you looking for me?" "I'm Zhu Long." The burly Zhu Long jumped to the bow deck and took out a stack of 100 yuan bills from his pocket. He threw it to Wang Xiaodong and said, "I've transferred the deposit to your bank card through bank transfer. I believe you've received it. You also know our purpose. We'll set off after all of our people have arrived." Wang Xiaodong's eyes lit up. He estimated the stack of 100 yuan bills in his hand and felt that it was at least 10,000 yuan. With the thought of making a fortune, Wang Xiaodong happily put the money away and asked, Zhu? Big brother Zhu Long, right? Money makes the world go round. I'm happy to serve you. I've prepared everything we need, including food and drinks. I'm sure we can stay at sea for 10 days to half a month. That's right, how many people do you have? My fishing boat can't accommodate many people. Apart from the 4 of you, it can only accommodate 10 more people at most. There's one more, said Zhu Long indifferently. Wang Xiaodong immediately felt relieved and asked, Big brother Zhu Long, you're not going out to sea to enjoy the magnificent waves of the sea, are you? Judging from your temperament and attire, it's obvious that you're rich. Why do you want to rent my fishing boat? Why didn't you rent a luxury yacht? Chapter 777. Zhu Long indifferently glanced at Wang Xiaodong and indifferently said, Didn't the introducer warn you that your task this time is only to escort us to the Strait of Malacca? No matter what you encounter or see on the way, you shouldn't look, listen, or ask. Wang Xiaodong sneered inwardly and was somewhat dismissive. He was not blind or deaf, so how could he not look and not listen? He even cursed inwardly, acting so mysterious, don't tell me you're doing some shady business. The red-haired youth, Fire Devil, who was carrying a birdcage, said in a cynical tone, Zhu Long, why are you talking so much with this brat boss? Since he took our money, he has to do things honestly for us. If he makes us unhappy, we can just throw him into the sea and feed him to the sharks. Wang Xiaodong shuddered inwardly and immediately became more cautious. He knew that the red-haired brat in front of him had a point. If they really acted against him in the vast sea, he was afraid that he would die a wrongful death. Don't act recklessly. I've taken your photos and sent them to my family. If I encounter any danger, you'll be the suspect. Hearing Wang Xiaodong's guilty conscience, Fire Devil let out a strange laugh and looked at Zhu Long asking, Boss Zhu Long, is that brat surnamed Tang coming or not? There's still more than 20 minutes left according to the agreed time. If he can't arrive on time, I think we shouldn't wait for that burdensome brat. Zhu Long grunted twice and didn't answer Fire Devil. He didn't want to wait for that arrogant and reckless guy. But it was an order from his immediate superior, Duanmu Lin after all, so he didn't dare to easily abandon Tan Xiu. The hot and beautiful Electrolady had long purple hair draped over her shoulders. Her sharp nails were dyed purple, and her clothes were also purple, making her look as cool as a purple lightning bolt. A smile appeared on her beautiful face as she said, It's really rare to see someone who can make Boss Zhu Long so angry in this world. I'm a bit interested in that guy. If he's handsome, I might as well take him to my harem. Fire Devil gave a thumbs up and praised, Electrolady, I'll support you in spirit. I hope this brat can enter your eyes and enjoy all the blessings in the world. Electrolady twisted her slender waist and winked at Fire Devil, giggling. Since it's a blessing in love, why don't you enjoy it, Fire Devil? Fire Devil suddenly shuddered and stepped back half a meter. He waved his hand and said, Don't. I don't have that kind of luck. I don't have the fortune to enjoy it. Coward. Electrolady rolled her eyes and grumbled snappily. Suddenly, her expression changed and a pleasantly surprised look appeared on her beautiful face. She pointed at a man who was strolling leisurely in the distance and smilingly said, Fireman, since you're such a coward, then this old lady will let you go. My new target is here. What a handsome little guy. Just looking at him makes my heart itch. Boss Zhu Long, give me 20 minutes, I'll definitely make that handsome guy kneel down before me before we set off. You are not allowed to go. Zhu Long shouted in a low voice with a gloomy face. Electrolady stared blankly for a moment before she resentfully snorted. She knew Zhu Long's character. He was very cautious before he carried out a mission and was very strict with his team members. What a pity! She secretly sighed inwardly, but she tried her best to remember that handsome face. She hoped that she could meet him again in the future and then display her unique womanly charm to capture his heart. However, to her surprise, the handsome guy in her eyes actually walked directly toward their direction and even stopped at the shore. Could it be? Could he be the guy who provoked Zhu Long's boss and was called a reckless bastard? Tan Xiu glanced at Zhu Long before his eyes swept over the people on the bow and immediately said, "I'm not late, am I, Zhu Long?" Zhu Long coldly snorted and directly turned his head to the side. Fire Devil observed Tan Xiu a few times and then immediately showed a warm smile. He waved to Tan Xiu and smilingly said, "You must be Brother Tan Xiu, right? Welcome, welcome, welcome to our voyage of death. I'm Fire Devil. This one in purple is Electro Lady, and the one in light blue is Aquababe. That's right, I must solemnly introduce Electro Lady to you again. She's the goddess in the minds of all men, and she likes a handsome young man like you." "Shut up," Electro Lady angrily shouted and waved her hand at Fire Devil. Seeing that Fire Devil was scared and hurriedly retreated, she then put on a bright smile and looked at Tan Xiu. "You're Tan Xiu, right? Don't listen to that coward Fire Devil's nonsense. I'm very glad that you can join us. We'll have to rely on you to protect us weak women when we get there in the future." "Well said," Tan Xiu calmly replied and then boarded the fishing boat. Electro Lady came to Tan Xiu's side. Although her every frown and smile showed her charm, Tan Xiu didn't care at all. Of course, if it were any other man, they would have long been bewitched by her. But who was Tan Xiu? He was a supreme powerhouse who once stood at the peak of the immortal world. Let alone Electro Lady, even the enchanting demoness of the 9 heavens enchantress couldn't bewitch him. "All right, let's go." Zhu Long threw a stiff sentence and turned to walk into the cabin. The fishing boat wasn't very big, but it could be regarded as an ordinary ship for sea operation. Usually, a dozen people would go fishing at sea and return with a full load almost every time. But now, there were only 4 crew members on this fishing boat, including the owner of the fishing boat, Wang Xiaodong. They hoisted the sails and set sail. The speed of the fishing boat wasn't very fast, but it still gradually disappeared from the port on the rippling blue sea. After sailing for a whole day, they sailed into the Strait of Malacca the next day. Although the entire strait was 1,080 kilometers long, with the southeastern strait connecting the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, the 3-star vestige was located at the junction. Since the location was relatively clear, it didn't take long for the fishing boat to approach a small island. "That's strange. I've come here a few times with the fishing boats of my elders and also landed on this island. But this place is rarely visited by people, and sometimes there's not even a single person. How come so many ships are docked here today?" Standing on the bow deck, Wang Xiaodong was surprised to see more than a dozen ships of various models in front of him. Some of these ships were yachts, passenger ships, and even cargo ships. There was no fishing boat at all. Zhu Long, carrying his military travel bag, came to Wang Xiaodong's side and said, "Wait for us here. If we don't come back from the island in 5 days, you don't need to wait anymore and immediately set sail back. Remember, don't clash with the people on the other ships and don't easily communicate with them." But Wang Xiaodong was confused. "Those people are likely to have evil thoughts toward you if we can't come back alive." Zhu Long sneered. Wang Xiaodong shuddered inwardly. With his keen senses, he saw 2 black men holding guns on a nearby passenger ship, coldly looking in their direction. Guns? Who the hell are these people? How dare he hold a gun in front of everyone? Is this an underground organization's gathering? In a flash, he secretly made up his mind that he would give up the money he hadn't gotten yet. After Zhu Long left them, he would immediately return. After all, money was important, but it was not worth mentioning compared to his life. Tan Xiu was the last to disembark. He glanced at the slightly pale Wang Xiaodong, who was secretly looking at the gun-wielding black men. Tan Xiu indifferently said, "If you sneak away after we leave because you're afraid, I'm afraid you'll be in more trouble. After all, it's fine if we die here. But once we go back, we'll be able to find you even if you run to the ends of the earth." Wang Xiaodong's heart instantly fell into an ice cave. He looked at Tan Xiu's cold eyes and squeezed out a smile, saying, "I know what to do, Mr. Tang." Tan Xiu patted his shoulder and then suddenly whispered in his ear, "That Zhu Long fella is too arrogant and doesn't want to talk to you, but I can tell you something. As a matter of fact, we're special members of the state who were ordered to carry out a secret mission. Once we do a good job, our country will reap great benefits. So even if it's not for you, you must think about our country. People of the state? Wang Xiaodong looked at Tan Xiu in shock, and a monstrous wave was set off inside his heart. At this moment, he realized the identity of Tan Xiu, Zhu Long, and the others. Even if they were not the special forces of the state army, they should be secret agents. But I'm actually working for this kind of people? Wang Xiaodong suddenly felt a bit proud. He looked at Tan Xiu, who had jumped to the shore, and loudly said, "I'll be waiting for you, Mr. Tang. Also, I don't want the money later. It's all for the country." "Well done. You're a real man." Tan Xiu turned around and gave a thumbs up to Wang Xiaodong, and then chased after Zhu Long and the others. In fact, Zhu Long and the other three clearly heard the conversation between Tan Xiu and Wang Xiaodong. All of them were ability users, and their hearing was 10 times better than ordinary people. Although they were a bit annoyed that Tan Xiu revealed that they were people of the state, they also realized that Tan Xiu's communication with Wang Xiaodong was to prevent the latter from leaving and abandoning them here. This guy's mind is very meticulous. Even though Zhu Long didn't like Tan Xiu, he couldn't help but praise him inwardly. The 5 of them carried their simple luggage and walked along a bare path into the island. There were very few plants on this island, and it was difficult to see any big trees as far as the eye could see. There was only a layer of green vegetation growing in the crevices of rocks and damp places. After walking for a few kilometers, Tang Xiu then saw a tent in the distance, with soldiers wearing military uniforms of different colors and styles, as well as military ranks of different countries. The surrounding area was completely sealed off. Tan Xiu also saw the military uniforms worn by the Chinese soldiers. Chapter 778. According to what Tan Xiu knew, there were a total of 10 countries qualified to explore the 3-star vestige this time, and they were also the top 10 strongest countries in the world. Therefore, only 50 people could enter the 3-star vestige. Tan Xiu didn't know the specific abilities of the people sent by each country. "Hello, I'm Gao Hongxing, China's commander stationed in Haiban Island. May I ask which one of you is Captain Zhu Long?" A middle-aged man walked out of the olive-green tent with 2 officers and strode toward the 5 people. Zhu Long saluted and said, "I'm Zhu Long, the captain of this 3-star vestige exploration." "You're finally here," said Gao Hongxing with a smile. "Tomorrow is the joint opening of the 3-star vestige, and people from other countries have already arrived. Come with me. Your equipment is ready and I'll hand it over to you later. My mission is more than half completed." Zhu Long nodded and didn't introduce Tan Xiu's group of 4 as he followed Gao Hongxing into the military tent. The military tent was very spacious, with 7 or 8 soldiers in military uniforms sitting in front of a row of LCD screens, watching the images on them. On the ground on one side were 5 bulging military bags, apparently containing a lot of things. Zhu Long didn't stand on ceremony with Gao Hongxing and strode to one of the military bags. He quickly opened it and poured out everything inside. After carefully checking it, he nodded with satisfaction and said, "Everything is here. Sorry for troubling you, Commander Gao. I'm just following orders, Captain Zhu. You don't need to be so polite." Gao Hongxing shook his head and smiled. "Also, if you have any other requests before you set off, feel free to ask. We'll try our best to satisfy you." "No." Just as Zhu Long spat out a word, he was interrupted by Tan Xiu's voice. Zhu Long's expression turned a bit ugly in an instant. Tan Xiu ignored Zhu Long and looked at Gao Hongxing instead, asking, "I have a request, Commander Gao. I hope you can help me with it." Gao Hongxing looked at Tan Xiu with a surprised expression and nodded. "Just tell me if you have any questions." "I didn't see any military ships when we came here," said Tan Xiu. "They should have been transported by plane, right? Once we come out of the 3-star vestige, will you be responsible for sending us back?" "We did come here by helicopter." Gao Hongxing shook his head and said, "Our mission is to be stationed here all year round to seal the 3-star vestige together with the soldiers of other countries. We don't have the authority to mobilize the helicopter, so we can't send you back. In that case, I hope you can send someone to the coast to temporarily detain the owner of the fishing boat who sent us here," said Tan Xiu. Otherwise, once he and his crew leave, we won't be able to return. If the country sends someone to pick us up, it will waste a lot of time. Gao Hongxing smiled and said, "Leave this kind of small matter to me." Zhulong looked at Tan Xiu and sneered, while Fire Demon looked at Tan Xiu with contempt. Even Electrolady felt that Tan Xiu was making a mountain out of a molehill. Among the crowd, only Aquababe frowned and looked at Tan Xiu thoughtfully. "Tan Xiu, you seem to be very concerned about whether you can go back as soon as possible?" asked Aquababe all of a sudden. Tan Xiu glanced at her and indifferently said, "Indeed. I really want to leave this place as soon as possible and go back to handle other things." Aquababe didn't speak again and just nodded gently before shifting her gaze elsewhere. Zhulong, who knew Aquababe, looked at her with a surprised expression and slightly furrowed his brows. Gao Hongxing seemed to be aware that the atmosphere at the moment was a bit off. Whether it was Zhulong, Fire Demon, Aquababe, Electrolady, or Tan Xiu, all of them had an inexplicable sense of distance. However, he was too lazy to get involved in the affairs of the five-man team and just seriously said, "Your single tent is next door. Your names are posted on the tent chain. Stay there first and I'll personally take you to the submarine's parking place tomorrow morning." The submarine? Tan Xiu's expression moved. Although he knew that the three-star vestige was deep in the sea, he didn't expect that it would be a submarine that would send them there. He was quite interested in those big iron lumps at the bottom of the sea. After all, this kind of technological weapon was absolutely an indispensable weapon in the sea war. After each of them carried a military bag and walked out of the tent, Tan Xiu released his spiritual sense and instantly saw all the scenery and people within a radius of 300 to 400 meters. However, he still couldn't tell which people from other countries would enter the seabed to explore the three-star vestige. However, he easily found his own military tent. "Tan Xiu, I'm scared to sleep alone at night. Can you?" Electrolady swayed her slender waist and slowly came to Tan Xiu's side with a longing look in her eyes. Tan Xiu raised his arm and waved. "Don't play those little tricks with me. You're obviously still a virgin, yet you still want to show such an appearance. If I were to control you and take your body, I'm afraid you'd want to kill me, no? Electrolady, don't do this kind of boring thing again. It's better to conserve your energy and adjust yourself to the best state before entering the three-star vestige." Electrolady's expression greatly changed. She looked at Tan Xiu with dread in her eyes. She had some contempt for Tan Xiu before, but his performance at this moment was not that of a hothead who didn't know anything. Tan Xiu no longer paid attention to Electrolady and went straight into the military tent. He opened the military bag and looked at the things inside. A Mitsubishi Army knife, a mini telescope, a lighter, and a box of matches, as well as a diving suit, an oxygen mask, compressed biscuits, and water. The last thing turned out to be a mini pistol. "This gun doesn't have a clip?" Tan Xiu frowned and carefully observed it for a long time. Only then did he find that it really didn't have a clip, but there was something like a cell phone battery inside. Since he couldn't figure out the gun's situation, Tan Xiu didn't have the mood to experiment. Except for the diving suit and the oxygen mask, which were left in the military bag, everything else was put into the interspatial ring. Then, he directly sat cross-legged and began to adjust his state. Outside the tent, Aquababe gently came to Electrolady's side. Watching her constantly changing expression, she softly said, "I don't know his true ability, but he's the only one who can give me a threatening feeling. I don't know why I have such a feeling, but I'll never look down on him." Electrolady furrowed her brows and angrily glared at the military tent where Tan Xiu was. She then turned her head and angrily said, "Who knows if that guy is just putting on an act or not? A threatening feeling? Why can't I feel it? I think Boss Zhulong is right. He's just an arrogant and unruly bastard who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Just wait and see, Aquababe. Wait until we enter the three-star vestige, he'll cry." Aquababe's expression was a bit solemn. She quickly glanced around and shook her head. "Electrolady, this is actually the second thing I'm worried about. Haven't you noticed? We haven't seen anyone from other countries since we came here. Someone should have come to provoke them according to their usual style." Electrolady's heart sank. She looked around and indeed didn't find anyone from other countries who entered the 3-star vestige. She immediately nodded and said with a solemn expression, "That's right. We must be vigilant." The next day, after Tan Xiu came out of the military tent, he saw Zhu Long and the others sitting together with a hand-drawn drawing in front of them and talking in a low voice. Tan Xiu walked over and the four of them didn't avoid him and continued to talk. "We don't know what's behind the fine steel door, nor do we know if there's any danger inside. So, look for the switch as much as possible. Remember, we must find the monitoring room as much as possible. As long as we can find the monitoring room, we can clearly see the situation inside the vestige. It's more suitable for us to act under such circumstances. Also, beware of the people from other countries. Even if they take the initiative to express goodwill, we must keep a distance from them. Once we enter the vestige, the danger we'll face will not only be inside, but also the experts from other countries who will enter with us." Sitting cross-legged between Fire Devil and Aquababe, Tan Xiu looked at the hand-drawn map and asked, "Is this the map of the 3-star vestige?" Although Zhu Long didn't like Tan Xiu was, after all, a Chinese national. In order to let Tan Xiu live longer, he explained, "The 3-star vestige here has been opened once before. Every country sent a large number of people to enter, but only one person came out alive. That person was a martial arts expert of our country. Unfortunately, he was seriously injured when he escaped and only woke up for a while on the 3rd day before he passed away. This map was brought out by him." "Have you figured out how big the 3-star vestige is?" asked Tan Xiu. It said that this map is only a very small area in the vestige, probably less than 1/10 of it. Zhu Long shook his head. "But even such a small piece of land is as big as a dozen football fields." Tan Xiu's expression shifted and he glanced at the northeast direction. Then he slowly said, "Perhaps we need to double the danger of entering the 3-star vestige this time." Fire Devil raised his hand to stroke his red hair and disdainfully said, "Don't be an alarmist, Tan Xiu. It may be dangerous for you, but it's not worth mentioning to us. Don't pretend to be a big shot if you're afraid. Just follow us and I'll protect you." Tan Xiu thought for a moment and nodded. "I'll follow you in the early stage of entering the 3-star vestige. I'll leave alone after I solve some of the dangers." "Suit yourself." It was Zhu Long who replied to Tan Xiu with an unfriendly tone. He felt that Tan Xiu was afraid. Once they entered the vestige and encountered all kinds of dangers, he wouldn't dare to talk about leaving the team anymore. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.